Scott Counter,
Present.
Carrie Rice,
Present.
Ryan Shirley,
He's excused.
Jerry Van Zomeren,
Present.
Dick Hesselink,
Here.
Sean Anderson.
Present. Yeah. All right. Move on to approval of the minutes. Are there any changes or corrections to the minutes? Seeing none, we'll let those stand. Or we'll mark those as approved. We'll now move on to public comment. I have names in order. I'll ask that if you haven't submitted a card and you want to, you can still talk, but if you're here to comment on either the public hearing items, a rezoning request or conditional use permit request, that you wait until those public hearings are announced. With that, we'll start with Celeste Coburl, and after Celeste is John Gostovich.
Hello, everyone. My name is Celeste Coburl. I live in the town of Hudson. I want to just really briefly touch on your business agenda items 4 and 5. Regarding item 4, the consideration of the possible new ordinance on renewable energy, I provided in my email, and I have some print copies here too, a fact sheet I hope you'll bear in mind, which has some information about how an appropriately designed, sited, and managed solar PV farm can actually positively contribute to soil health and improve soil health over the years. Then on the second topic, the manure storage facilities ordinance, I would urge you to please do recommend amending the ordinance to require that land spreading agreements be with the actual owner of the property. And I think that items 4 and 5 present some similar sort of issues, which is that while we all respect the freedom of private property owners to make choices of their own about what they do with their property, we also realize that there are effects on the neighbors. And I think that requiring land spreading agreements to be with the actual owner of the property is a way to ensure more accountability about choices that are made, and also to allow the owners of the property to be fully informed about what's being done to property if they're an absentee owner. Thank you. Oh, and then last, there are some flyers here about a wonderful conference coming up on October 4th about watershed, the St. Croix River watershed, and things that we can all do to contribute to clean water. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, John, and then after John is Peter Bernard.
Good afternoon. I'm John Gostovich, live in the town of Hudson. Mr. Chair, members, a couple of quick comments. One has to do with land spreading agreements. I think that having those agreements signed and acknowledged that they're with the owner of the property protects not only the owner of the property, but also the operators of the dairy CAFO, because then they can demonstrate that they have talked to somebody, and then if there's some sort of outcome that causes some sort of a dispute, they have proof that they have served notice and gotten the agreement. So I think it benefits both, and I don't see any burden there whatsoever. As far as the solar ordinance, I'd refer you to the two handouts that I included. One is called Regulation of Solar Generation Facilities. The other one is called Regulation of Wind Energy Facilities. I think it's important to understand how thorough and deep, expensive, and long the Public Service Commission adjudication of these requests is. And the proposed ordinance for St. Croix County appears to be a hodgepodge of items lifted from other ordinances. There's lots of stuff in there that's not defined. I'm not sure what benefits it would have to the county, and the county really needs to know if this is in its interest to undertake it. I'd refer you to look at the details. This is horribly specialized, complicated, and nutty. And to take this on while the Public Service Commission is already engaged in these adjudications strikes me as you've got better things to do. Other comment I want to make is in the proposed ordinance for this county, they referred to the Mid-Continent Independent System Operator. It's the only ordinance I've found anywhere that refers to this bunch. They control the pricing, distribution, and planning for electricity generation from the Arctic Circle down to the Gulf of California, Gulf of Mexico. And it's a big stretch in the middle of the country. We are part of that. And we have electricity in Wisconsin today because there are wind farms, solar facilities in Texas that are cranking out power to beat the band, and we are also importing electricity from Manitoba Hydro. This is a huge, complicated system. It runs at 60 cycles per second, and we expect it to be there when we turn our lights on. Without the solar and wind generation capacity that's been built in the last 25 years, there would be rolling brownouts all over this part of the United States. And we all talk about the beauty of burning natural gas. If you want to build a natural gas large plant anywhere in the United States, it will take between 7 and 10 years to just get the turbine delivered. So I think we should leave the generation of electricity out to the people who have been doing it very well and take a real hard look at how carefully it's regulated under existing statutory law, regulations, and the work that the PSC does. They do a good job. And why we want to replicate that here is beyond me. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Peter, after Peter, we have Bonnie Smith.
Good evening. My name is Peter Bernard. I reside in the town or city of Hudson, and I want to speak regarding the solar farm. I'm asking this committee to outright reject the idea of large solar farms here in the county. I'm asking you just to say no. Several reasons that many people can and have identified to reject these large farms, but I'm going to refer you to this article that I passed out tonight, as well as you have received in your email inbox. It's an article by Just the News. I agree with a lot of the reasons that you see in this article around solar farms and some of the issues that exist with them. But let me also give you other perspectives. I've got a degree in mechanical engineering, and while I was in school, we had engineering labs regarding solar power. Ever since, solar has intrigued me. That was over 30 years ago. However, I've been disappointed in the promises of solar over and over again. Solar industry people like to say that panels will occupy a small fraction of the land in the U.S. Aside from the question of what fraction that is, i.e. farmland, it is actually taking, the real numbers do not add up. Projections are often cited for 11 million acres are needed to supply the electricity usage that existed in 2015 for residential uses in all the United States. There are plenty of articles, blogs out there that actually refer to that number over and over again. But you'll see in this article by Just the News that indicates Tennessee has about 1.2 million acres already, and they're projecting, I think, another 2 million acres to supply their electric needs for residential purposes. In addition to that, if I extrapolate, they have 2% of the population in the United States. If I calculate that out for the entire residential population, we're going to need 5 times the amount of land that they thought we would need to begin with. So what about businesses? For just big tech, which according to Harvard Business Review, data center energy demands were estimated about 1.7 terawatt hours per year. This is 1,000 times what they're talking about for residential. It's interesting that these companies are talking, Google, Meta, Microsoft, Amazon, they're looking at nuclear power plants for their needs. And I'd ask you to consider, why are they looking at that stuff? In my opinion, according to the articles I read in Harvard Business Review, their needs are very simple: predictability and reliability. Do we think that solar has these attributes? I think these 2 points actually land, the actual land usage and the business pursuit of nuclear power should tell us something. That perhaps solar is not everything people say it is. There was a day when people decried the destruction of farmland due to urban sprawl. Why no outcry now? Thank you.
Thank you. I'd ask to hold applause, please. Bonnie Smith, and then after Bonnie is David Meyer.
Bonnie Smith, Baldwin Township. So we are asking you, our county supervisors, to intervene for us, with us, to stop this 5,000-plus acres of solar destruction nonsense. The meeting with Excel was very telling. Same info since day one. The answer to all the questions are, we don't know yet, or we won't tell you. Sign here, and we'll do what we choose, and you will have no say. Who would do business with anyone about anything with those answers? Would you? This is real. This is our life, our present and our future. This is not a game. We will leave this to our generations who have no say and yet will have to deal with the messes. Again, I say, I've said this before, this is not a few acres, this is thousands of acres. This is not a few years, this is 30-year lockdown. No one will build, sell, plant, hunt, or fill in the blank. Just think about it. And I go back to St. Croix County is high risk for sinkholes in your website, and groundwater in this area is extremely vulnerable to contamination. Use these words in a sentence about anything having to do with health or safety of anybody in your family or friends. Would you say, sure, go ahead? To someone that wants to do things that won't even share what they're going to do, and it's not going to benefit you. In all reality, let me answer that for you, no. Thank God no one has lost their lives in Wisconsin sinkholes. There's a man in Florida who was not so lucky. He was in his bed, and that part of his house sunk in a sinkhole. They never found him. His house is his gravesite. So I go back to high risk and extremely vulnerable. Please don't play Russian roulette with these words about our health and safety. Sinkholes can be sudden or can occur over time. When and where they show up, no one knows. I'm going to read it all. Can 5,000 plus acres be okay specifically to St. Croix County? And I said this before, that's a question. Answer, construction activities and the weight of solar infrastructure could trigger sinkhole formation or subsidence, gradual caving in or sinking of an area of land, leading to infrastructure damage to roads, bridges, buildings, and land. The warnings are everywhere, high risk and extremely vulnerable. Why would you allow such a huge project of excess pounding and the heavy weight setting on thousands of acres for almost a half a century, changing and shifting the karst underground? If you're thinking about the money that you may or may not receive from Excel, if they actually come through, it's spent before you receive it, fixing structures, sinkholes, paying for fires, losses. And I end with this. You don't really want to be the next forever lawsuits like 3M, do you? You will be known to say, we saw the warnings, but we let them do whatever they wanted anyway. God help us. Please intervene for us and with us. Our world will never be the same.
Thank you. Okay, David. After David, we have Virginia Draft.
I'm David Meyer. I live in Erin Prairie. I'm here asking this committee to intervene at the PSC hearings. People from multiple townships have provided input to the county about their health, safety, environmental concerns about the XL Solar Project. I have yet to hear from anyone in the county say that these concerns are unfounded or without merit. If the county does not believe our concerns are valid, please give the towns the opportunity to explain our position. Having the county intervene at the PSC rather than multiple townships intervene is exactly how county government should work. You represent your people who come to you with concerns that have impacts across the county. There is an old saying that goes something like this: "'Tis better to have fought and lost than never to have fought at all." Thank you.
Virginia, and then after Virginia, we have Scott Miller.
Hello, my name is Virginia Drath. I'm from Emerald Township. This is regarding the landowner's agreement. Hunters generally ask permission to hunt our lands, and we have the right to say yes or no. And a couple of years ago, a couple raccoon hunters asked me if they could hunt my land. I gave them permission, but they didn't check the traps and left 2 raccoons to die in a cage. Never again will I allow them to hunt my land. It's always common courtesy and accountability that is guiding our way in our land, and landowners' signed agreements should be required. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Scott, and after Scott, we have Heather Buhner.
All right. Appreciate you guys' time today. I come to talk about the agenda item 7, the intervening. As far as I see it, the government body here is put in place to protect our rights, right? The government here is to protect our rights. First step should be for you guys to just stand up and say that the funding of this solar, wind, garbage, if XL is so great, XL wouldn't have to rely on funding from the taxpayers and to the people, the farmers. I understand it. I come from a farming background. I understand that piece. But if the taxpayer is not involved, XL is not there giving you bribery money to lease your land. They're not buying it, remember. So what I would say with this number, the intervening, is I don't think you need to intervene. You need to, if you look at the Wisconsin statute 20.155, Public Service Commission, I'm gonna read this a couple times. The number 1, they were put in place to the regulation of public utilities, okay? So we're having this big debate about their power over the county and the local government. Well, right in the statute, it says their job, the PSC, their job is regulation of public utilities. So where in that does that override the county level governance? Where does that override the township governance, right? Okay, so if we look at that on its face, we send our request. Well, let me get to that. We're gonna go to duties, okay? Statute 196.025. Under duties, number 7, it's talking about State Energy Office is one of the duties, okay? It says the commission may provide technical assistance to units of government other than the state to assist in planning and implementation, okay? Nowhere in there does it say that they can ram it down our throat. And I was trying to find that statement, right? That the county doesn't have a say, because that's all I hear. The local government doesn't have a say. So it is a county's job and our local governor or our municipal board's jobs to send down to them and say, here's what we need from you. If you're gonna look at this, here's what we want, we want the federal, all this money out of there, which they try to say they got state, federal money. Oh, no, we're not. Oh. So us taxpayers are funding this. That's the only reason they're doing it. And it's your guys' job to send a strong message to the PSC board that we don't want it. If they want to do it on their own with the farmer, fine. We can't stop that. I'm a big advocate for personal rights. But when we're funding it, we can tell them we don't want it. Thank you.
Thanks. All right, Heather, and after Heather, we have Laura Kennard.
Hi, my name is Heather Bruner. I live in Erin Prairie Township on County Road K, just east of Richmond. I would like to say that Monday night's meeting on the 18th was super disappointing. I know that the board has asked Excel to, I know that the board asked Excel to please introduce their panel, and instead Brian went into a 30-minute speech about Excel and how they are a regulated energy company and going to be around for 100 more years. Of course they're regulated. All electric companies probably are. I believe they are regulated. And no one knows the future. He doesn't know they're going to be around. We've heard that word so many times. Instead, he should have introduced his panel, sat back down like the rest of us had to do. All I have to say is please don't believe what they are trying to tell you. The lies are thick. We all heard it. It was super hard to sit in the back of the room, not being able to say a darn word, and listen to lies and misleading information. They didn't tell us anything. We've all done our homework. We know what's going on. We as a big group beg you to please not accept a JDA from Excel and promise us that you will intervene and fight to protect what we have worked so hard to have. We fought to have 35-acre minimums in Aaron Prairie Township, helping to protect our area from disasters like this happening. I have one question. If this is such a great idea and a great thing, why are they not building it in Minnesota? That's their home place. Don't they want it on their own soil? Of course not. They want to destroy Wisconsin. If St. Croix County officials allow this to happen, it will be the biggest mistake in St. Croix County history. And you will have to bear this destruction for all future generations and explain to your kids, grandkids, and great-grandkids how you chose to allow electric company to come in and destroy some of the best farmland in St. Croix County has to offer any of us. I know one thing, that I will be able to tell my kids, my grandkids, and my great-grandkids that I did not allow this. I fought, and if this crazy projected project is allowed to happen, and I can't stop it, at least I can say that I gave it my all, I'm exhausted, and I tried. They will know that I did not sit on my hands and watch Excel run us all over. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I hope that you will consider fighting.
Thank you. All right, Laura. And after Laura, we have Stephen Ladega.
Hello, I'm Laura Connard. I live in Aaron Prairie. Thank you for the chance to speak. I have a question or clarification. In the past, the county has said that Excel drafted the JDA, and I believe when Excel was here on Monday night, they said that the county drafted the JDA, so I'm hoping that you can clarify who wrote it, who proposed it, and how it came into existence. Another kind of point of clarification that I'd like, I understand that Jason showed how much the county could possibly make from this project on Monday night. I hope there's some documentation that's going on about how much is going to be lost in the tax revenues. I don't think there's extra money coming in from this project. It's a change in how the taxes go and these payments are coming in. I hope you're looking at the totality of that circumstance. It was also just raised to me that the schools will get less money. Some part of the tax revenue that comes from the landowners using it as ag is lost. And so I don't know if part of that payment that was going to the school was something that Excel was doing to kind of counter or offset. So I feel like there's a general feeling or opinion that this project is bringing all sorts of extra money into the county. And as it's been explained to me, and I welcome if I'm wrong, please explain it to us that it's really kind of just a different way that things are taxed rather than additional money that's coming in from Excel as some big gift or some good big neighbor, big brother thing that's happening. I also want you to factor in how much will it cost the county and townships for this project to come in. There are going to be costs. There's going to be unanticipated impacts from this. How is that being factored into this project? I don't know what the right way to handle this is, whether it's through intervention, whether it's through a lawsuit, whether it's a moratorium, whether it's resolutions. But I hope that the county can work together to figure out, do you want this or not? I think the residents have spoke and shared a lot of concerns that make this project or show that this project is not a good fit. It's not something we want. It comes with way too many risks for health and safety. And together, let's work together to do the most efficient and most cost-effective way to let Excel know we don't want this. We don't want our land turned into an industrial solar complex. It's not consistent with the comprehensive plan. It's not consistent with the zoning. Yes, we all want energy. We want it safe. We want it effective. But I don't think this project is helping us accomplish that. And it is not going to mean lower energy bills for anyone inside or outside of Excel. I think the only people that are going to profit from it are the Excel shareholders and the people who leased their land in the short run. I think in the long run, it'll cost them a lot more. I have another comment. I have other comments about solar, but I'm going to leave it. But this is on the roads. This is on Highway 64 and T in New Richmond. There was another accident out there. If it's not already on your radar to be looking at something to improve the safety of that particular spot, please do. I drive that way a lot. There are many, many crosses. I didn't count them. I was going to, but there's crosses out there. Please have that on your radar to help that be a safer interchange. Thank you.
Thanks. Stephen, after Stephen is Charlie Van Dusarts.
Steve Wadega, Aaron Prairie Township. The final JDA draft Excel presented wasn't enough. The presentation on Monday is their final closing argument why the county and the PSC should send Excel packing back to Minnesota. As Hammond put it, Excel has given us a bunch of nothing in answering the issues. We were all there on Monday, and it wasn't earth-shattering. Excel was asked to introduce its people at the meeting, and we got a 20-minute commercial about how big and great Excel is. But when asked if they considered the impact of the 10 Mile Creek on the farmland and community, etc., all they could say was the cheapest option. They keep claiming that they're using the existing transmission lines, but that's not true. The existing lines aren't big enough to send all this energy back to Minnesota. They need bigger lines than what's running along County Road E right now. They claim they have the cheapest rates around locally, but FindEnergy.com ranks NSP as 86 in Wisconsin for residential rates. St. Croix Electric, on the other hand, is 53rd in residential rates in Wisconsin. The revenue sharing dollars that are being tossed around is a pipe dream. The bottom line is whatever's generated on these panels is what's going to get paid for it, and it's going to be paid as an annual license to the state of Wisconsin, who then decide how to divvy it up to the county, townships themselves, or whoever they want to give it, and that's all subject to change over time. So yes, the county needs to protect the health and safety of its residents, our farmland, an exorbitant Excel bailout that's lurking in the future. If that means intervening, then the county needs to intervene. If that means suing the PSC and Excel, then the county needs to sue. If that means doing both, then the county needs to do both. We need to protect our future.
Thank you. And yeah, this one will be called in from Charlie.
We're going to phone a friend here.
U.S. Pride, Charlie here.
Hi, Charlie. You're with the St. Croix County Community Development Committee, and you are on speaker for public comment.
Oh, thank you. So, my name is Charlie Van Dusarts. I live at 1516 110th Avenue. I am within a half mile or less of the proposed solar fields. I've lived here 30 years, built my house and shops over that 30 years as a nice place to live and eventually sell. I placed my house for sale last fall. Over the last 8 months, I've had multiple showings, private showings with buyers, potential buyers, and they all say it's a beautiful spot, but what's the story with the solar fields? And I have to tell them, yeah, I don't know. They're proposed to go down the road, but we don't know. And they all walk away. They're killing my property value. I built this as a investment for myself down the road, and I've seen many people come to the meeting and say, you know, it's a beautiful thing. We got to do these solar panels. These solar fields are a good idea. I invite them to come by my place. They can live in the middle of it. I don't want to. I don't want it in my backyard. I don't think anybody wants it in their backyard. I say no. Thank you.
All right, very good. Thank you, Charlie.
All right, next we have Carrie Willows. And that's all right. Oh, Willoughby. Okay.
You're close enough.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I've said it before, and as soon as you said it. Anyway, after After Carrie Willoughby is Tom Irwin.
The only kind of comments I want to make here, I kind of want to disagree with this gentleman here who got up and said something about the PSC being really diligent in all the expectations. I think it's interesting how we all know or we hear that everything that goes before the PSC just gets stamped as okay. A 3-person board, unelected, put there by current governor. And if you don't think there's some political purposes in that, there is. So do I think the PSC is really looking out on behalf of citizens of St. Croix County? Absolutely not. But the other thing, a few things I wanted to say is Excel has admitted to us that they do not need this project. Brian himself said that at one of our meetings, and we have it on tape if you all need to see it. When speaking with a geotechnical engineer and some other people, it's clear that the state of Wisconsin has laws that make it easy for the power companies to come in and do what they're doing. And I really hope that through this whole process, when you guys look at doing an ordinance, I hope you do it and do it quickly, because these are popping up all over Wisconsin and other states. And the county governments don't have the funding, or they're not organized enough, or they don't have the ordinances in place to work with what they're getting hit with. And I mean, we're all of us who've been working on this are very aware of how big Excel is, but it's not the only one. I have a brother I'm from Madison. Originally, I have a brother who's got a cabin in central Wisconsin, and they're plugging one in there. And actually, there's another really big one in Plover as well. And I know the east side has some too. But again, I think a lot of the county boards need to get some ordinances in place and make them quick and tweak them if you need to. I'm kind of curious to know how many of you actually read anything that I sent you about the karst. Because we've been told that sometimes some of you guys aren't reading your emails, and I hope that's not true, because we're relying on what we're sending you to actually be viewed or read. And I'll be honest, I have a full-time job. For me to put all that stuff together, we've done a lot of research. It would be, I guess, respectful from you guys on our part to actually read some of it. And on there were some suggestions for your ordinance in terms of this particular county. Again, that should be something, I'm not for the JDA. I think we should not be doing that. Excel has proven time and time again for all of the residents that they don't come to the table and they don't give us information. And just like Bonnie said, I don't know who signs a contract without having the details put out. So it would be nice to make sure that we actually have some details, but I don't think we are gonna get that from Excel. And so I would like to see us go. I would like to see you guys be interveners. I know this is a big fight. Again, this is new territory, I think, for a lot of counties. And I think we need to be leading the way and actually being an example with this. And lastly, I think that's it. Thanks.
Thanks, Carrie. So Tom, and then after Tom, we have Matt Bachland.
Good evening, thank you. Have you ever left your presentation at home on the kitchen table? Anyway, so I'll kind of hit some of the highlights I recall. But I just wanted to say that just recently the USDA is announced that they're ending the programs for solar and wind farms on farmland. They're recognizing that that's not a smart thing to do, to continue to eat up our farmland with all the developments, and this green energy thing is like putting it on steroids. I want to go back to when it was NSP, before Excel took it over. We had among the lowest rates. Now we have Excel. We have among the highest rates. They now live and survive on government subsidies. This is becoming just like getting a college education. Once you got student loans, the price has just gone through the roof because they found out it doesn't matter. It's just government money. I've heard a lot that the committee and the county, we've heard this back when we were coming before you for the invasion of our country with illegals that there's nothing you can do. I'm glad our founding fathers didn't think that same way. There is something we can do. We can stop this. All we need is some leadership, some people to step forward and say, you know, at the very least, we should put a pause on this. And we should put a pause on it because the trend of this whole power grid is changing quickly. It's going back towards common sense. They're recognizing that the shutting down all these coal plants when we have the cleanest burning coal in the world is not, you know, we're doing that before we've got substitutes in place. And I'm pretty familiar because I've been going to South Dakota a lot, and they've got massive farms out there, windmill farms, if you've ever seen them. Well, guess what? Most of it's being lost anyway because they don't have the transmission lines they have. So they got the cart in front of the horse, which is typical, which is back to Xcel Energy is really like the federal government now because they live on our tax dollars. Canada, since Xcel took over, Canada has been building hydro plants, selling the power to us, while Xcel has been tearing down the old NSP dams and power plants. Doesn't make a lot of sense. So, you know, I think with the changes that are taking place, the USDA ending the programs for solar and wind farms on farmland, we need to exercise some leadership and stop this. Because once it's in place, it's too late. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Matt, and after Matt is Catherine Monkitrick.
Making sure, judging the height of people if they get up here. Thank you. All right, Matt Bachland, Town of Troy resident. First and foremost, before I make my public comment here, you know for the most part that I don't show up at this county board unless it rises to the level that needs to be. That's the first step. Second step is obviously there's multiple people on this county board that we've helped get elected and are sitting in these seats, and there's a reason why we worked hard to do that. That being said, this came to me about 8 months ago. Just because of all my activities, I get a lot of phone calls from a lot of people asking me to come to this county board and fight for their particular situation. When you have that, you have to judge which ones are priorities and which ones aren't, because there's only one person. At the time when this came up, because I fought this in 2021, when it came to St. Croix County before, I went through the whole procedure and it's the exact same process. I was working with Title IX and fighting that in our schools and making sure Title IX was being stopped. That being said, there were 2 solar groups here working on this activity. So I said, hey, there's lots of people working on this. Congressman Tiffany was involved. I come to you now because about 2 weeks ago, somebody reached out to me through a mutual friend and said, we really need help here. I said, what's the help? And he explained where we were at with the solar. I got very alarmed. So that being said, the reason why I'm here tonight is because I just want to add some clarity. This is not unique, and most of our citizens don't understand the game that's being played. So, an intervener, I've talked to people out there in Rock County about this. It doesn't work. They just run right over you. So, here's where I'm going to go with it. So, this intervener path that you're selling is not a win, it's a trap. And I'll break it down in 4 moves. It's like a chess game that we don't even know we're playing. Most citizens don't. Move 1 is reframe the fight. You say you're against, you just want a seat at the table. Suddenly the fight isn't solar farm, it's how we message it. Same stunt we saw in the public health officer debate. Instead of asking, should this power even exist? You had us debating who holds the power. Move 2, sell false victory. You promise setbacks and screens, crumbs. That's crumbs for us, that Charlie was right. Some play as refugee resettlement, dress it up as safe and structured, while the real issue, our right to say no, was already surrendered. Move 3, divide the opposition, whispers. This is the smart move. Those shouting no are unrealistic. Same trick with the Title IX. Full resistance was labeled extreme, while weak tweaks were sold as responsible manipulation, plain and simple. Move 4, close the trap. You say we intervened, we fought so hard, we secured protections, and you pat yourselves on the back. Meanwhile, the people live under the policies they never wanted. Let's be clear, the last meeting, that was a trap that was already set before we walked in here by a lot of county board supervisors. What we witnessed wasn't leadership, it was a theater. And they made you believe it was real. After it all said and done, some of you will polish up those resumes, like I said, while citizens will be left with lower property values, like Charlie said, poisoned water, which that gentleman back there, Aaron Prairie, very smart guy. I love him, glad he's here. I smiled when he walked in. And nothing at the table. The very people elected to defend the county are the ones selling it out right now. We must be like Marines. We have to be like soldiers, folks. Holding the line, you have to hold the line. Nobody else will. Donald Trump is not coming here to save you. No matter the odds, it seems mounting. Don't believe him. It's all theater. Because what you see here are weak, which is true, scared. People are scared, typically lawsuits, typically loss of money, and they will surrender their soul. And you reject their positions with every moral fiber of the American spirit. We are the Americans. We are the ones with the power. You have to stand up and fight. Neighbors, the only winning move is the one supervisors fear the most. That's why 8 months ago they made sure they tried to put that down. Say no. You really need a resolution path that says no. And if need, let us take it to court. Let us fight it out. But give us a shot with a resolution. History will not remember those who stayed silent. It will remember those who stood. That was Ray said. So I ask you right here, right now, who among the supervisors seen here and the ones that aren't here will rise with strength? We know the problems. Who's going to stand up? And whom among them will bow and surrender and call it good? Because they will call it good, folks. In closing, when all they tell us there is no path, that it can't be done, and that the process has already been spoken, then why does XL keep coming here? I remind them, America itself, that's us, was born free men and women, refused to believe there was no path. Table this intervener. It doesn't work anywhere, folks. It's a temporary thing to make you feel good. And they will tell you how great they did for you. And pass no resolution for XL Solar Farm. That is what we need to do. Just pass no. Thank you.
Thanks. Catherine, and then Sue Curtis after Catherine.
My name's Catherine Munkitrick. I'm a resident of Kinnickinnick, town of Kinnickinnick. I've lived here for 39 years. And I am very alarmed about this solar farm being proposed and seemingly already approved. It hasn't legally, but the feeling I get from the county board meetings I've been at is, and all the work on the JDA, just tends towards approval. I think the JDA kind of undermines any disapproval or things you want to take up as an intervener. I don't know the ins and outs of intervening. I do know that if you don't participate in an avenue to fight this, you may have not, exhausted all your remedies, and that might hurt you in future litigation. I am a retired attorney. I did represent the town of Forest in their fight against the wind farm. A small town, the residents and the board fought and fought and fought, and now they don't have a wind farm in their town. It's worth the fight, and especially given that laws are changing on putting solar farms on ag land. It just seems like a crime to me to put a industrial solar farm on good ag land in a beautiful area of Wisconsin that people come to enjoy, and it's being ruined for the sake of something that's very iffy, and even our federal government has seen the misguidedness of taking ag land out of commission for solar farms. So I do think you should talk to your attorney and get more specific information on intervening, but I do think you should look into that and do it. It's worth the fight. I've also looked at this so-called final draft of the JDA, and there's a lot of squishy language in there. Reasonable, comparable, no standards, nothing objective in there, or very little. And I did attend the meeting on Monday, and Xcel Energy offered no actual information, no substantive information. When they were asked whether they are aware of or even operate similar solar farms, they could go off a list, but the real question is, how are they doing? How long have these farms been in operation, and what have they done to those communities and that land? That wasn't asked, and it wasn't offered either by Xcel Energy. So I think they're asking you basically to sign this JDA with very little information about their design, and they're constraining any changes you may want to make. And actually just entering into the agreement is almost like an unspoken approval. Yeah, we'll have this in our place if you do this and this. They haven't even said they'll do this and this and this, but you're already saying that you could live with it. And I don't think you want to communicate that, or at least the residents, the people that have spoken out, we don't want you to communicate that on behalf of the county. I don't live near where this might be, but I live in the county. I've represented towns, and I know how important it is to the towns and how it will affect them. So I just really beg you to stand firm in opposition to this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Sue, and then after Sue is Roxanne Jorstad.
Thank you. Thank you again for this time. My public comment is to support the landowner agreements in Chapter 11. If your reason to be opposed to the solar farm is because of threats to groundwater, then we need to consider all threats to groundwater. I want to continue to shed light on the current threat to our watershed and consequently the health of the rural well owners and the health of our lakes, rivers, and streams and the wildlife that they support. Currently, we have an estimated 144 million gallons of manure that's spread in St. Croix County per year. There is no stop switch to our current threat to this watershed. There's no JDA. There's no intervener process. It's just us. And currently, one concentrated animal feeding operation in St. Croix County is doing a revision to their permit and wants to add 180 acres to their nutrient management plan for spreading. The question is, are these acres added because of the disclosure of the fact that landowners in Pierce County did not know their land was being spread on? Is this manure coming in from Pierce County? I want to bring your attention to their revised online application. It doesn't make sense when you read it. It refers to Pine Ridge Dairy, which is over 3 hours away, and hauling manure to a manure digester in Denmark, Wisconsin, also extensive hours away. The information just doesn't make sense. Why does this matter? Nitrate contamination is an issue in our county, and people are unable to drink their water. Please firm up Chapter 11 by requiring land spreading agreements. And additionally, to those listening, you can send a letter to make a comment to the DNR currently till Friday regarding the Croix Breeze CAFO permit revision. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, Roxanne. After Roxanne, we have John Van Dyke.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm from New Richmond. I just want to reread a statement from President Trump. Any state that has built and relied on windmills and solar for power are seeing record-breaking increases in electricity and energy costs. the scam of the century. We will not approve wind or farmer destroying solar. The days of stupidity are over in the USA. Make America great again. Make today your day to take a moral stand for St. Croix County. God has called on us to fight against those wishing us harm and the destruction of our farmland. We must unite and fight this. The wind and solar industry has proven its ability to destroy a nation, not only in its ability to power itself, but in the process of destroying a community's ability to feed itself. This project is far from low cost and is never, never environmentally superior. When a price per acre offered to a farmer is too good to be true, who is the fool? At the August 18th meeting, Vice Chair Fiedler highlighted the dollars that would come back to the county. However, there is no amount of money to the farmer, to the county, the schools, that makes this scam palpable. I would ask Chair Anderson, do you want a solar farm next to your home? Yes or no? What? I would ask Vice Chair Counter, do you want a solar farm next to your home?
Yeah, we can't respond to questions during public comment.
Okay. Stand with our president who states the days of this solar stupidity are over. I want a resolution that says no. No to Excel, period. St. Croix County must totally reject the 10 Mile Creek solar farm project entirely. Spare the intervener path. Just say no. Choose wisely for your county and future generations. The biggest scam of all is that energy is actually free. We shouldn't be paying utility bills. You are energy. I'm energy.
Thank you. All right, John. And I think I have, after John, we have Tim Holden.
Again, I wasn't gonna talk, but as you found out Monday, that doesn't seem to work. Monday, I asked how many pylons they were gonna drive in. They couldn't tell us. Really, when you're in business spending a couple $100 million or whatever, you don't know how many pylons are being driven in. The city of Richmond has a 1 acre, and I don't call it a farm, call that a garden, but there are 800 pylons and panels in a 1 acre lot. They also had a parking lot in one of the business south end of town, and it was paved over and it sank. The owners tried to blame the blacktop people, but it wasn't a blacktop fault, it was a sinkhole. If you look at electricity, it's considered a grid. It comes from all over and it joins. They told us there's 100 different plants that they have, hydro, gas, coal, I think they even had nuclear in there. And it's a grid. It's like our roads. You want to go someplace, you punch it into your phone, and it'll tell you where you can go. First of all, it'll take you to the interstate. Then it'll take you to the state road. And then it'll take you to a county road, and then a town road. Well, electricity is the same way. They can direct it. They can improve the efficiency at some of those. Their hydro plants are not up to 100% capacity. they can work on that. But the easiest, cheapest way for them is to take from point A, St. Croix County, to point B, to Bayport. That's the cheapest, easiest way. But there are other ways to send it on the grid. It doesn't need to be taking 3,000 acres of prime farmland. There are things that they can do to improve what they have. Even the coal plant, they keep improving the emissions on that. They're not as bad as they used to be. That one's at 40% capacity. What's the rush? The other thing that I keep reading, especially fusion energy that's coming on, and my son's a colonel, retired colonel in the Air Force with a PhD and master's in nuclear engineering. He's been in Japan, he's been in the UK. This fall he's going to Austria. He's been to 12 different states. This fusion energy is on the horizon. This thing will be obsolete before it's ever completed. If some of you that have been around a while, we had the Nike base, south of New Richmond, north of Roberts. Before that thing was completed, it was obsolete. It sat empty, now it's a storage. So if it costs $300 million to put the solar panels in, it'll probably cost that to take it out. And the farm will be ruined in the process. Thank you.
Thank you. Tim?
Good morning, or good afternoon, or evening. Yeah, thank you for letting me speak. Can I pull this up? Is that okay? Okay. Yeah, I live in New Richmond, Wisconsin. I really like it there. I'm a transplant from Minnesota, but I wouldn't advise getting any advice from St. Paul. I'm ashamed of what's happened to my home state. And I don't own any land in St. Croix County, but I do live in New Richmond and I really like it. You're probably wondering, well, what stake do I have in this whole thing? And the stake I have in it is clean water. And many of you are probably aware of what happened in Flint, Michigan. And they didn't tell the people that there were heavy metals in the water for years, where they were getting their municipal water supply from. And children were getting cancer, and years later they finally told them, and they had to bring in bottled water, of course, similar to what happened in Cottage Grove with the 3M nightmare. And over 20 years ago, my dad worked for the DNR in Minnesota for 35 years, and they had a magazine they put out, a little booklet called the Minnesota Volunteer. And there was an article in there about fresh water. And this is over 20 years ago. And they said at that time there's only 10% of fresh water left in the world. And they felt that someday there could be a war over fresh water. And I don't know if you're aware of this, northern Minnesota and northern Wisconsin and other parts around here, St. Croix County especially, have some of the finest water in the world, not just the United States. I don't know if you realize that. Water is life. Water is life. And and I'm sure you probably know the basics of what's in one of those solar panels, that there's heavy metals and hazardous waste in there. And if it splinters, I've read that soil reclamation is impossible. So it would ruin the farmland, the soil, and if it got into the water table, it'd be totally undrinkable. As we're finding out, like one lady pointed out, they're having trouble with the nitrates and such from the manure and stuff. So I'm not an environmentalist, I'm a conservationist. But in this issue of clean water, this is something that should strike all of us. Don't you think? Thank you.
All right, I made it through all we made it through all the slips we had. Is there anyone who hasn't made public comment that would like to speak? Anyone else for public comment? Yeah, please step up, state your name, just the, I guess, municipality you live in. And
Hi, Jim Bruner, Aaron Prairie. Thanks for letting everyone speak today. One thing that we're all talking about is land. The only thing worth anything, the only thing worth working for, the only thing worth fighting for. And that's why we're all here, to fight for our land. When it's gone, it's gone. When the soil's removed, no more farming, no more food. When the water's polluted, money's not gonna fix it. So all the talk about money that Excel's gonna donate, it's not gonna fix it. We have a very fragile water filter under our feet. You can't attach a dollar amount to it. If this industrial project goes in, most of us will be dead or close to it when it's decommissioned. Who knows what that'll look like in 25 years? Technology is changing rapidly. So do you as board members want a legacy in the hallways and the books as the ones that destroyed the landscape, making it a solar ghetto in western Wisconsin? Or do you want the legacy to say, the men and women that stood up and said, we can do better. We can protect our land, our people, our heritage. Teddy Roosevelt, a conservationist, said conservation of the land is a national duty. Leave the land for your children, your children's children. Now it's time to be leaders, to do your duty, to create your legacy, a legacy that others will want to follow. Thank you.
thank you. All right, anyone who would like to make public comment, we're gonna limit it to one.
Could I just mention a statute that I missed in my statement?
If you have it in paper, you can just pass it and we can read it, yeah. Any other public comment? Any other public comment? And then any other public comment? Seeing none, we will close public comment on the non-public hearing items. We'll move into public hearing number 1, the rezoning request for leasing in section 11 of the town of Kinnickinnick.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and committee members. John Hilgers with Community Development presenting this item. The first public hearing tonight is a rezoning request by the Leeson Revocable Trust. The applicants are Joshua and Alana Leeson. The site address is 452 Old Cemetery Road. The request is for a rezoning of 11.068 acres from R2 residential to Ag 2 agricultural. The Ag 2 zoning is being sought tonight to allow a variety of ag entertainment uses on the property, including the sale of pumpkins and other fall festival activities. The property is currently zoned R2 residential, which does allow most ag uses and residential subdivisions, but does not allow ag entertainment uses. And again, just a refresher for the committee, the definition of ag entertainment includes farm-related activities, such as nature-based tourism, fishing, hunting, horseback riding, educational experiences, hands-on chores, wine tasting, harvest festivals, barn dances, weddings, overnight farm and ranch stays. The next few slides will be some of the location maps. Highlighted in blue is the subject property. It's located in the town of Kinnickinnick, south of I-94 and south of County Road N. Taking a little bit more detailed look at the subject parcel, a fairly rectangular piece, you'll see that some of the surrounding land uses in the area include cultivated areas, timber stands of pines, and scattered residential home sites. And then this picture just shows the street view of the property looking north from Old Cemetery Road. Again, as we mentioned, the property is currently zone R2. The R2 district is indicated by the yellow. You'll see some of the abutting properties, also R2. Again, as mentioned earlier, some of the residential properties range in size from 2 to 15 acres. Next, we take a look at the local unit of government's comprehensive plan. As required by state statute, rezonings must be consistent with the town's comprehensive plan. And basically, the comprehensive plan is a series of maps, goals, and objectives that help guide the future growth of the jurisdiction. So up on the screen, we have a snippet of the future land use plan from the town of Kinnikinnick Comprehensive Plan, which was just adopted in 2024. They designate this property as mixed rural residential, and some of the language that's attached to that designation does support conservation design, residential development, along with farming and ag-related uses, scattered open lands, and cottage industries, including home occupations. Next, we also take a look at the county future land use map, as the county also has a comprehensive plan. And under the future land use plan of the county comprehensive plan adopted in 2024, this property is guided for mixed rural agriculture. This area is meant to preserve productive agricultural lands while allowing limited residential development and to protect existing farm operations. Recommended zoning categories for this designation is R1, Ag 1, or Ag 2. And then lastly, we just highlight the St. Croix County Farmland Preservation Plan. And you'll see at the point of the red arrow, the red dot indicates the subject property. This subject is included in the Farmland Preservation Area Plan Map for the county. To qualify for this designation, a parcel must meet very specific land evaluation and site assessment scores. These scores were developed by the Soil Conservation Service and the U.S. Department of Agriculture as a means to identify productive ag lands and activities. Parcels were then assigned scoring criteria. Some of the criteria included soil characteristics, soil productivity, and then the land use policy of the local comprehensive plan, in this case, Kinnikinnick. The scoring is then used to qualify properties for exclusive ag zoning and whether or not these properties are eligible for Ag 1 and Ag 2 zoning and potential tax credits. And to qualify as a county, we limit residential development in these ag districts. So the most density you can get in the Ag 1 is 1 unit per 40 acres and 1 dwelling unit for 20 acres in the Ag 2 district. With this parcel being included in the Farmland Preservation Plan map, it is eligible for the Ag 2 zoning. Real quickly, we'll take a look at the natural resource features and any impacts the rezoning could have on the landscape. The first map just shows that an environmental corridor on the northeast portion of the property, and this correlates to some steep slopes that run from northeast to southwest. The activity for the ag entertainment uses would take place outside of those areas, kind of on the southern half of the property. The natural resource plan does not indicate any shoreland areas, wetlands, or floodplain areas on the subject parcel. This next map shows some of the productive farmlands with the green hatched, which is primarily in the southern half of the property. Again, the red shades you see up here indicate the steep slope areas. Next, we take a look at the governmental agency review. The town of Kinnikinnick Town Board met to discuss the rezoning request for the Leesons, and on June 3rd, 2025, they did recommend approval of the rezone to the committee. Some of the policies that were referenced in their findings were from the town plan that encouraged small-scale sustainable ag and small-scale businesses, and also encouraged the preservation of farming options, including hobby farms and the ability to farm by existing and future operations. And then number 3, we just basically show a county policy that says that the property is within an area eligible for farmland preservation zoning, Ag 1 or Ag 2, consistent with the county's preservation goals. So again, since it was included in the farmland preservation plan map, that rezoning request would be consistent with the county policies. Real quickly, just looking at some of the applicable statutes and criteria, the committee must find that the plan or rezoning request is consistent with the comprehensive plan of the county, the natural resource management plan, the features that we just reviewed, and that the town has approved the rezoning request, and that the rezoning request does not constitute spot zoning. So following review of the town recommendation, the review of their plan and the county plans, it would be the staff recommendation that the committee approve the rezoning amendment from R2 to Ag 2. We kind of cite the findings under 1 through 5, citing the consistency with both the town and the county comprehensive plans, that the subject parcel is identified in the St. Croix County Farmland Preservation Plan, and that county policy does support the rezoning change, that the rezoning does not conflict with the natural resource management plan features that we just reviewed, and that the town of Kinnikinnick has formally recommended approval of the application. And we just make for reference number 5, it's likely that some of their festival attendance will exceed 100 people during a 24-hour period. The owners and the applicants were notified that if that is the case, they will need to file an event plan, which would be an administrative permit that would help detail the parking, hours of operation, ingress, egress, sanitation, and signage. We did post, as required by statute, this hearing in the official newspaper. Everybody, all property owners within 300 feet of the subject property were notified. Before the meeting, we did hand out a public comment that was received. It'll be referenced as Exhibit 4, but this is from an abutting property owner at 462 Old Cemetery Road, voicing their support for the rezoning request. That concludes the overview of this application.
All right, is there anyone from the public that would like to comment on this public hearing, either in favor or against the rezoning? Anyone would like to speak on this rezoning request? Any member of the public want to speak on this rezoning request? No, seeing none, we will close the public hearing. Move to business item number 1, amending the comprehensive zoning ordinance in the town of Kinnikinnick to go from R2 to Ag 2 for an agritourism business for leasing. Any questions, thoughts, concerns, etc.?
So this sounds like the kind of place that I would like to go to. My only concern is having to do with signage. I think, John, you mentioned signage. And I only say this because right now it's sweet corn season and we've got all these little places all over. I have witnessed accidents because, you know, people pulling in out of small driveways, that kind of thing. It's kind of nice if coming to something like this, there's signage ahead of time so that in the event that there is an event, a casual driver would know they have to slow down and anticipate more traffic. So could you explain what kind of signage they have at this location or what they plan to have?
Perhaps the applicant would be best able to answer that, and it does vary based on what's being offered on the property. So our threshold is anything over 100 people within a 24-hour people would require a land use permit. They would have to show some of the signage concepts that they're looking at. Our basic ordinance requirement does require signs to be out of the sight distance, like when people are pulling out of a site. A sign cannot be blocking the view of the oncoming traffic. So that's just a basic general ordinance requirement. So if we receive a call or concern about that, we will follow up on that. But in this particular case, maybe I'll have Josh or Alana answer that question about the signage that they might be anticipating for this site.
We are going to be adding some signs. If you look at the picture, we are on a 90-degree corner, pretty good visibility each way. So they do inherently have to slow down to make it around the corner anyways. But we were talking about just adding some further up to let people know on that.
Yeah, that answers my question. I'm just thinking, you know, and I'm not looking to add expense to your business proposition.
And that's fine. We talked about that anyways, and that was in talking to the neighbors around us. Was one thing we said we were, you know, one concern that was brought up, and we said we would, you know, address that.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions or thoughts from the committee? Yeah, go ahead, Supervisor Connor.
Just one question on that. If I didn't physically get to drive out there and look at the property on this one, but the question is that kind of like a joint driveway that comes in then and services a couple of different properties, or is that a single just serving this property?
I believe it does access two parcels, but I'll allow the applicant to answer that.
It does, there is a rental property to the left, so it does access that also.
And then with that, is there any issue amongst running a business operation there and things with having the joint, do you have like a joint driveway?
We do, he actually, he works for us in the fall. So
you
it's a rental house there, so everything, that's all fine there in that respect.
Okay.
You're the owner of the whole parcel?
We aren't the owner to the left, we're the straight ahead. We have a shared driveway there.
Then do you have a driveway agreement between the other owner of the property that the joint driveway serves?
I guess in writing, I'm not sure, but we could get that if that's necessary. It's been a driveway like that for 11 years, and I guess it's never been a concern, but if it's something we need to get, we can certainly get that.
Okay. Anyone want to make a motion? Go ahead, Supervisor Summer.
I make a motion that we amend the comprehensive zoning ordinance plan, RZN 2025-0203, section 11, town of Kenneconnect, to go from R2 to Ag 2 for the ag tourism business for the license.
And I'll second.
All right, any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Carries unanimously, thank you. Now move down to public hearing 2, conditional use permit request for Norse in section 31 of the town of Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the board. Jared and Naomi Norris are requesting a conditional use permit to operate a handyman repair business on a property located at 631 91st Street in Hudson, Wisconsin. The Community Development Department did provide a Class 2 notice with the Star Observer, the official county newspaper, on August 7th and August 14th, which is at least 2 weeks prior to this meeting. The property is 2.01 acres in size. It is currently zoned R2, and the R2 zoning district basically has two different options for a CUP permit. One would be a home occupation, and one would be more of a contractor storage yard. And so the applicant is requesting kind of a use in that is halfway in between maybe of those two uses. So this application is made actually underneath uses not listed, but similar in nature. So the applicants operate a handyman business out of their location. About 10% of the work is actually completed on the property. Most of that work is completed within the garage or around the garage. And then they also do a lot of work off-site. General repairs include vehicles, small engines, yard equipment, and appliances. And those operations are normally only done through the daylight hours and that within that confined area around the dwelling in the garage. The applicants have stated that any fluids that would be in any of those equipment would be properly disposed of and recycled. The applicants believe in their application that their proposed use does not affect the enjoyment of the surrounding properties because most of that activity is being completed off-site. and it's within the daytime hours, and usually within inside the garage. They believe that there's a strong demand for the handyman services in the area. And again, it kind of falls in between the two uses. So when we look at the general standards for a home occupation, and that it requires that there shall be no exterior storage of business equipment, merchandise, inventory, vehicles, or heavy equipment. The applicant is proposing and that to park and store vehicles or equipment that is in the process of being repaired or and that will be repaired or is already done and needs to be picked up outside of the building. So that's where that really doesn't quite fit. But our staff thought that if there was some screening added or something in that would serve a similar purpose of preventing it from being an eyesore to the neighborhood, that goal of having it indoors would be maybe met as well. When we look at a contractor storage yard, activities are limited to the storage of equipment and vehicles used for off-site. No manufacturing, retail, or other business services shall take place on the same lot. Doesn't necessarily fit that standard either because they want to do about 10% of their work on site. So that's where we're kind of falling in between these two definitions or two uses, and it's really up to the committee on whether or not you think that this proposed use is suitable for the R2 zoning district. So with that, we'll jump into the site plan here. So you can see 91st Street is a dead end right here by the Norris property. There's their house. They have an attached garage in this location. And then you can kind of see by how they've been currently operating in this aerial image where they're kind of parking their stuff. This is a zoomed out look at this property, so you can see that the area is pretty much surrounded by housing, and there is a fair amount of density of houses in that close by to the Norris property. However, that their property, and that doesn't include any wetlands, steep slopes, floodplains, or waterways, so those are not a concern, those sensitive environmental areas. This is the current view of the property from 91st Street. So that would be the garage where they intend to do most of their work. Here's their area for storage. You can see that the tree cover along the road here doesn't provide a lot of screening. Most of the stuff you can see. A couple more pictures of the site. The garage here, and that's just to give a little bit more details, about 28 feet by about 30 feet. The well is on the back side of the property. So this slide is about that use is not listed, and so the proposed handyman business has similarities to both of the home occupation and contractor storage yard. But again, it doesn't fully meet the requirements for either of these land uses. And that is ultimately the call of the Community Development Committee. The town of Warren has not provided any comments on this conditional use permit request. Now, unlike a zoning change where we're requesting the towns to provide feedback mandatory before they come to the county, because really they have the ability to object to it, and that can stop that ordinance amendment from going through. CUP, the town is really only advisory, so the committee or the county doesn't necessarily have to have their input in order to take and proceed with the application, but the towns can provide comment if they wish. We just haven't received anything. When we look at our standards in our Chapter 15 ordinance that relate to conditional uses, we've got provisions A through J here that talk about the safe and healthful conditions. Is there any water pollution, sedimentation, drainage features, vegetative cover, environmental corridors, which we don't have on this site, erosion potential, and access roads, that kind of stuff, the need of the use in that location, and compatibility with adjacent land. A contractor storage yard is supposed to be complying with these provisions, so they have to have a permit. They have to have at least 3 acres in size, which again, this one's a little less than, or right around 2 acres, so it's less than 3 acres in size. It requires that the property be kept in a neat and orderly manner. They're used to be off-site, not on-site, and the hours of operation are 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. And then all other permits are to be required, and then we have provisions for lighting to make sure that the lighting's not a nuisance to the neighbors, and then screening, so. Contractor storage yard has a lot of the same, and so with that, we do have findings of fact and conclusions of law drafted for this request, but I can take any questions from the committee on this, or if the applicant's here and wants to provide testimony, we could go that route, and then we'll come back for the findings.
Let's see if we have public comment first, and then
Okay.
we'll, or and then we'll continue. Is there any member of the public that would like, including the applicant if they're here, that would like to speak either in favor or against this CUP? Let's continue this use permit. Anyone would like to speak on this conditional use permit? Yep. Mm-hmm.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to stand and talk. I'm Jared Norse. I live in Warren. I operate a very small handyman business. I've grown up in St. Croix County here in Hudson just about all my life, and appreciate all the people here who have concerns with what's going on the property, and totally agree with a lot of what's been said. So I thank you for this opportunity. I just wanted to comment, a lot of the cars, the vehicles in the picture are actually personally owned and not used for the handyman business. I operate quite a large fleet of what I refer to as beaters with heaters. It's a aging fleet of vehicles for my family. My mother-in-law is in the town of Hudson. My sister and her family of 11 are in the town of Hudson. My brother's in Warren, and we've just got lots of friends and family in the area. And so I'm always trying my best to help neighbors and friends and family in the area to repair their items. And so with the 2 acres of land, I also get requests from family and friends if they can store campers, or like my dad's jet ski, which he doesn't have enough property to actually store it on. So the majority of the items are fully operational. I can move them around the property on their own power. The majority of them are licensed and insured for normal use. There are several that are in need of repair, but still able to move under their own power. And with my wife, if she were here to comment, it would also be encouraging me to make sure that our yard didn't turn into a junkyard. So you know that you have my wife's encouragement to make sure that things don't get junky, having garbage or dangerous items in the yard, because we do have kids that play, and cousins and friends. And so thank you for this opportunity. I'm willing to ask or answer any questions. Just please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public that would like to comment on this conditional use permit? And one more time, anyone from the public that wants to comment on this conditional use permit? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. We'll move to business item number 2, the CUP 2025-0204 conditional use permit request for Norse in Section 31 of the Town of Warren for a major home occupation.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. I can go through some findings of fact. Again, we know the owners, the address is 631 91st Street. The application was applied for underneath a use not listed pursuant to section 15.285, parentheses 3 of the county's ordinance. The applicants are currently operating this home-based handyman business in their house. The repairs of equipment and vehicles, the hours of operation being normal daylight hours in the garage. The applicant having all the fluids and parts and supplies disposed of properly, and then about 10% of the work being done on site, and then the rest of it being done off site. Is there any findings of fact that the committee would like to add? Basically, those just came out of the staff report.
Anything that the committee would like to add to findings of fact? None from you, Supervisor Rice?
I'll just say that the one question I had you addressed, that had to do with the vehicles in the yard. And that sounds like it's something that predominantly is separate and apart from the context of your application. Is that fair? Well, maybe the question is, do you anticipate the majority of the handyman work to be done in the garage or nearby?
Yes. So most of the work that I do on the property, 99%, which is only about 10% of the total work that I do, is done in or just in front of the garage on a cement slab there. The only work that would ever be done outside of that area would be if I need to charge one of the batteries so that I can start a vehicle up and get it moved over to the garage. I do have a compressor. I use a lot of pneumatic tools inside and just outside of the garage. I've been working on my own items ever since we moved in, and the neighbors' items too. So far, to my knowledge, no one has ever had issue with making too much noise or hours of operation. I try to be respectful to my neighbors, as we've lived next to each other for a good 15 years.
So maybe the follow-up is, while the application dealt with appliance and handyman, which I need sometimes in my home, when you say appliance, does that extend to automobiles and those kinds of things?
Yes, it does. I've got one vehicle in my yard right now that is running just fine. He brought it in as preventative maintenance for a timing belt. And so parts are ordered. It will probably be on the property for a week to maximum, depending on when parts are delivered. And the work will be starting soon with minimal noise. It's a relatively easy job, and not a lot of large tools are needed. A lot of the work does not have to do with transmission changes or engine changes. I don't have large, heavy equipment to do that level of change or work on the property. The 90% that I do off-site ranges from screen doors, deck. It's usually smaller work that bigger contractors that don't want to touch because it's not above a certain dollar amount. So there's a lot of widows in the St. Croix County that need help getting things done around the house that their husbands used to take care of, or their sons that now live in California or Texas. They're out of state, and they're happy just to have somebody get through the door to help them. So that's the major stuff that we do, is going to people's houses and helping them there. But for the small amount that I do on my property, that's what we'll be working on. So.
Thank you. There's a couple of things that bother me a bit about this, and one of them that we've not heard anything back from the town of Warren. And that's kind of something that makes me wonder why, and it makes me wonder if we should table this or postpone it until we hear something from them. I just feel more comfortable when we aren't kind of stealing their thunder or doing something they don't want to do. That's one thing. A couple of other things, we talked a lot of vehicles here, and we have this junk ordinance, and he's probably pushing that already. as far as the amount of space that's used for that. I would feel a lot better if there were a fence there to hide stuff behind. But I would also say if you're gonna put a fence up, put a building up, because it's much nicer working in a building than outside. That's just my bit of advice I'd pass on. Yeah, and storage is a whole nother issue. These things kind of all kind of build up. So I'm not certain. I'm glad you're doing this. There's a big need for what you're doing. I'm just not certain if you should be run out of your home, because you do have a lot of neighbors around you. The map shows there's a lot of other people there who. And I also, one other thing I noticed you talked about doing things in the garage, but when I look at the open door of the garage, I don't see a lot of room in that garage for a lot of projects. It looks pretty full now. And so I'm concerned about stuff spilling out into the front, spilling out into the driveway. Again, where children, you mentioned children, where they can become hurt or pushed or pressed or something like that. So I don't know if I'm comfortable with this, or if we would be more comfortable to postpone it until we get word from the town of Warren. Thank you.
It's my understanding that there is no ordinance on vehicles that operate and move under their own power, that you can have no limited, like there's no ordinance on how many vehicles you own and operate, as long as they are operating and movable. If they're not operating, it's my understanding that that's what would constitute the potential for junk. Have you ever heard of the Faith Community Church Faith Works? A lot of what I do is brake jobs, strut changes. I have a steel recycle pile that I keep out of sight, and every year I bring loads of steel to that. I've become very good at knowing where I can take things that need to be disposed of properly to make sure that they aren't building up. And you're correct. Right now, I'm going through my whole garage and cleaning it, and usually when that happens, it gets worse before it gets better. And I don't know that it's in any of the documents, but I did just have surgery. I was down and out for about 2.5 months, and things did pile up. And it's on both my and my wife's to-do list, is to get things organized, cleaned up, moved. There is a very tight schedule for people picking things up, me delivering items, and making sure that things look organized and are not getting out of control. Thank you.
I'm gonna agree with Jerry on at least, it would be really nice to have, comments back from the town of Warren, and it's just that, they're, in agreement with this type of project. But the other thing, one of the concerns is when we look at what was talked about tonight with the two different areas that neither one of them meet the criteria, but both of them spell out a lot of things for having a home occupation. And some of it is things like if it's going to be a storage yard where there's a lot of visible things, having proper screening. So proper screening can be as simple as like a 6-foot fence that's going around, that goes on a couple of sides of the property that adjoins neighbors, so that you lose that visual sight of what's out there. Is it required for everything? No, it wouldn't be if it were your personal thing, but you got to remember that you want to make this a business. So all of a sudden, there's other things that become involved with it that go above and beyond your personal property, where you would have to meet some other criteria then. So the fencing in of that area to protect from visual sight from the neighbors and stuff, I think would be a important element to consider. And I think that to bring this forward, I think the other thing would be that we really should, so that we're keeping as current as possible with you, asking the town to give us a response and then not make the decision tonight, but just so that we can do this as quickly as possible, but have full input, I think would be a benefit. I would look seriously at the things that those two different districts that kind of half match what you're trying to do, and try to be in, or consider compliance with as much as possible, so that you're meeting those things to operate a business out of your home and stay within the, we'll say, the faith of what the ordinances have in them, would be the best route to take, so that it makes it easier then for us, if you're moving towards that direction, to be able to say yes to something. So that's my opinion on it.
My question might be more for Jason, and that is, if we were to vote to table this, does that mean it's an entire month before we can address this again, or is there something in between?
No, and that if you table and that, it will automatically go on the September Community Development Committee agenda. You can also postpone to a date certain if the applicant thought he needed more time. But either one of those options, we don't have to put it back in the paper for notice. We don't have to notify the property owners and that. So those are your two options.
Would you have time within the next month to consider the things that we're talking about tonight and have a response to where you'd be at?
Certainly, yeah. It had been mentioned in discussion before this hearing that potentially the biggest items of concern is hours of operation, making sure that I'm not making a lot of noise outside of hours, disturbing the neighbors, and then visual effect of the operation. And so that was described to me as a fence, just to be able to keep the items that are specifically for the company out of view, which is actually very limited compared to what is currently in the yard. Having there be boats, pop-up camper, a jet ski, four-wheeler that my kids tool around on all the time. I've got 3 lawnmowers that the kids, it's pretty cool how they tag team mowing together, get it done real fast if there's 3 people on mowers. And those also are used to give out as loaners if I am working on someone else's riding lawnmower, so that they can continue operating and keeping their grass cut in their yard while I'm working on their lawnmower. So the majority of the vehicles that you see are personally owned, not used for the company. There's one truck that I use for the company. It's a pickup truck with a topper. Keep all my tools in there that I use for home repairs, a lot of woodworking tools in there, and occasionally I bring my mechanics tools along with in case I'm doing a repair on a vehicle or a mower on their property. But usually I ask them to drop it off at my house because I can more rapidly repair those items inside or just outside of my garage. And so if I did have to build a fence, I would do that. We did want an outbuilding, and that was something that we tried to make happen, and that was during the COVID era where building materials tripled and have since kind of bumped out of being able to afford something as nice as having an outbuilding to be able to do this work in. So I'm absolutely willing to see what we need to do to build a privacy fence to keep any vehicle that I plan to work on or have worked on out of sight until it's either picked up or taken care of properly. There are some vehicles that come in and are not repairable, and then usually they're donated and towed off the property within a short matter of time, as long as I'm able to diagnose what it is that went bad. And usually it's a bad transmission or a blown engine, and then it's out of the price range that the people are willing to pay, and so they have it towed off my property, or I take care of it for them. Does that answer your question? I want to make sure that I answered it properly.
Yes, I think what we would want to do is maybe team up with, who, I'm not exactly sure which staff member you're working with directly, if it's been Jason or with one of the other members, but just to work with them with more of the details on it, and then we'll be ready. Everything then should be ready for next month.
Okay.
So,
yeah, definitely. I would love to come back and go over future strategies.
Do you want to make the motion there?
So I would make a motion to table this until our next meeting, which is September 18th at 5 p.m. for the conditional use permit 2025-0204 request for Norse in section 31 of Town of Warren for a major home occupation.
Second, Supervisor Van Summeren. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Carries unanimously. Thank you. We'll be back in September with this one. All right. Yeah. All right, so we're gonna, as long as the committee doesn't object, we're gonna switch agenda items 3 and 7. So we'll deal with the resolution related to the 10 Mile Creek Solar Farm project now, and move the financial report to the end of the meeting.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. So we've had a lot of public feedback, and we just recently had the joint municipal meeting on Monday night with the towns of Aaron Prairie and the town of Hammond. And that whole conversation and everything up to this point has really been about whether or not the county board wants to enter into a joint development agreement on this project. And there's been a lot of talk about potentially intervening throughout the Public Service Commission process. And so the resolution before you tonight talks about the Public Service Commission having the authority to approve and deny such solar projects like the Excel project that we're seeing. It also acknowledges that the county can be an intervener. The towns could also be interveners. Even the public can be interveners if they want. Again, that's an administrative law judge process through the PSC. So that is the formal way to provide comment and testimony, findings of fact. The final application, as we all are aware, and that has not been applied for through the Public Service Commission. So this resolution would just be directory in the fact that when Excel applies, that this would give county staff, corporation counsel, and that the ability to take and gather all the materials needed to intervene in that process with the Public Service Commission. And of course, and that when we take and go through that intervention process, there's going to be cost if we decide to choose that route. And so staff would be directed to bring those kinds of matters, cost and everything back to the full county board for consideration. This is just really creating a stance that, yep, you're telling staff that we want to take and intervene, and for staff to start gathering the documents that may be needed and that to do so. So that's kind of a summary of the resolution, but with that, I wanted to bring up some new language, and I apologize that nobody has seen this before, but you can see the date on it. It was today at 2:52 p.m. And so this is a correspondence that we received from Brian Elwood with Xcel Energy. And so when we left the room here on Monday night, there was a big question about the intervention language in the joint development agreement and what that might really look like. So I thought that this text was very fitting to talk about since we're considering it on the agenda tonight. Also, in conversations with Brian, there was kind of a big elephant in the room about phase two. You know, the original JDA set up to 650 megawatts, and basically we hadn't seen any maps, we didn't know about the area or anything. And so Xcel is willing to amend the main summary and that on the first page from 650 megawatts down to 350 megawatts. So this would be just a joint development agreement for phase one. That's not them saying that we're not willing to do a joint development agreement for phase two. It's just so that there would be two separate processes. One of the things in that I think that this also points out is that it would also require a new certificate of public convenience and necessity, CPNC, for phase two. So this also assures that phase one, we're gonna have that all through the Public Service Commission at one time, and then phase two would be a separate application. It just wouldn't be an amendment to their original application to add that extra 300 megawatts. That's one change. But this text here, this JDA shall not be construed as an endorsement of the project by St. Croix County. The JDA is intended to establish terms that would govern Xcel Energy's development of the project if approved by the Public Service Commission of Wisconsin. St. Croix County may, at its sole discretion, provide public comment on the project to the Public Service Commission of Wisconsin and become an intervener in the Certificate of Public Convenience and Necessity, CPNC, proceeding at the Public Service Commission of Wisconsin. St. Croix County, however, agrees that in the Public Service Commission of Wisconsin CPNC proceeding, that it will not make statements adverse to and agreed upon a term in the JDA unless the county obtains new information that directly impacts that term. So to put that in simple provisions, anything that's agreed to in the JDA would be an agreement that the county has with Xcel. If there's new information that comes out throughout the application process, like they mentioned a geology study for the karst, that would not be something that we couldn't intervene on and provide testimony on. So we would only be limiting our scope of approval of the project, or not an endorsement, to the whatever's in the JDA, not anything else that's unknown. So both Heather and Xcel Energy's counsel have worked with this language. I'm not going to guarantee that it's going to be exactly this, but as you can see, it did come from Brian with Xcel, and they are pretty close that this is pretty accurate to what they're willing to do.
So I have a question, and it's probably a question for Heather. Explain this intervention process, what we can accomplish, what we can't accomplish. Is it just a fancy word for you can come and have coffee and then go home?
Well, I'll preface this by saying I'm not an expert at all in intervening in the PSC, but based on my research, the first document that would be filed is a notice of appearance from the county and the request to intervene. So that needs to go to the administrative law judge. The administrative law judge makes a decision that yes, you can intervene under two sections of the administrative code. We can intervene by right or intervene by permission. Our request would be to intervene on either of those sections. As an intervener, then you can provide briefs, you can provide testimony, you get to participate in the process, make arguments, those types of things. If we don't intervene, we can still provide comments to the PSC on the open docket. So being an intervener just allows us to provide more information to the commission.
So would we be representing the people, or would we just be doing what we can do, I guess?
I would be representing the policies of what the county board would like me to present to the PSC.
So we would have to come up with more policies for you to enforce.
Correct.
Okay, and in that, we could come up with a lot of things that said no, you know, without saying no and things like that.
And that all depends on whether or not the county board goes forward with the JDA also. So it all depends on what the final outcome is of the county board in terms of agreeing or not agreeing to the JDA. But depending on what the parameters were, the county board would tell me and Jason and whoever else is assisting with testimony or providing documentation to the PSC what you want us to argue in terms of setbacks, different items. And again, I'm not an expert, I haven't researched it all, but in general.
Right. So would this depend on the JDA? If we don't have the JDA, this won't happen? Would this happen if we have a JDA, if we don't have a JDA,
We can intervene either way. So we can intervene if there is a JDA or not a JDA. That's why we asked Xcel Energy to come up with this language that we can intervene regardless of if there's a JDA. We just can't contradict the terms we agree to in the JDA if the county board does agree to the JDA.
One more question. Is it an option to say, no, we want nothing to do with this? And what would happen in that case?
Correct. We can do nothing. The county board can decide to do nothing, not agree to the JDA, not agree to intervene, and then we just do nothing.
Okay, but the PSC would then rule that we had no contest and therefore.
Correct. They would make the decision just based on the information that Xcel Energy provides them, any other interveners, public.
Okay, but that wasn't my question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
My question was, can we say, no, we don't want this in St. Croix County?
We can say that, yes.
And what would that take? Is that part of the intervention? Is that part of?
That can either be by intervention or by comment.
Okay, and any teeth that we can put in that? I know the writing is kind of in their favor, but and from your point of view, as a representative of the county.
Correct. So the PSC has never rejected a solar energy project application to date. They follow a very stringent guide. I think Supervisor Carlson mentioned this on Monday. So it's kind of like a conditional use permit application. As long as the applicant meets all these requirements, it's typically approved. So the county board can say, we say no, we don't want it here. I just haven't seen that the Public Service Commission has denied an application based on the fact that the citizens don't want it.
So.
Yes, and that's why I reiterated, listening to Rebecca Roker, the attorney from February, she's done more of these than obviously I have. And it's just, unfortunately, the statutes indicate that the policy of the state of Wisconsin is that we should support and encourage renewable energy. That's the statute. The PSC relies on that. And that's why an application to date has not been denied.
So if you could make this work, it really look good on your resume.
Maybe.
Mr. Chair and Supervisor Van Summer, and I could also add, one of the bigger solar projects in the state was a project called Vista Sands. And the Vista Sands project was in Portage County. And throughout that process, there was a lot of opposition. There was also some support for the project, but there was over 1,100 documents filed as part of the public comment procedure in that Public Service Commission application. Ultimately, the county did end up doing a joint development agreement on that project, but even with, the bulk of that opposition and that being submitted to the PSC, it was still approved. And that was 1,305 megawatts, I believe, or right around there.
And all that information is located on the PSC's website. So if you're interested in looking at a big project like the Vista Sands, I can send all the county board supervisors the link to that docket. And then you can just take a look at all the comments that are on there, what intervention documents were filed. And so it gives you a good sense of what was filed in a larger project with lots of opposition.
I would appreciate that. And perhaps some of the public would like to see that also. Is that public information?
Correct. It's public for anyone to see.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, got a couple questions. We have a lot of engaged citizenry here in the last few meetings and board meetings. Beginning at the first of the year, none of us knew about the Public Service Commission, right? And it just wasn't something any of us were close to. We're getting educated. I looked at the Vista Sands project and talked with Jason about that. As we go forward, Heather, is there anything in the event that we adopt what's before us today with conditional or the intervenor role? Is there anything that prohibits anyone that we've heard come before us from filing their own?
No, anybody can file a public comment. To be an intervener, there are specific requirements in Wisconsin Administrative Code PSE 2.21 to intervene by right or intervene by permission. So they just have to check and see if they qualify. Like an adjacent property owner would likely qualify to intervene. If it's a citizen that maybe lives in Glenwood City, they may not be able to intervene, but they could definitely provide comment on the open docket.
So towns and villages could do that as well.
Correct, and the towns themselves can intervene. There are plenty of cases on the PSC docket that show that towns themselves have intervened, especially because they're directly affected.
I bring that up in part because I have read the minutes from Aaron Prairie and Hammond. There are some references to we don't have the resources to do this, the county should pay for it. And I think there's this idea that somehow we have legions of resources here. You're looking at her. This is it. This is the resource we have, right? And there are lots of things since January that have not gotten done because we've all been getting educated on this. I just wanted to kind of acknowledge, we hear you. We know you don't want it. We know you don't want it. In my view, the smartest thing that we can do is the roadmap that's in front of us, and that is a joint development agreement and an intervener role. Now, I'm seeing shaking heads because I think, some people, we want to change the world. There's a lot of things I'd like to change in the world, but we have a roadmap to follow. And a JDA, while that is not specific to our agenda, we're talking about it because we've got new information in front of us. A JDA is an enforceable contract. So it protects us going forward. And to me, that's the smartest approach, and I know that some of your county supervisors disagree. I want you to know I read every email, and I don't know any supervisor that doesn't. So I'm hoping you're being heard, because we do want to hear you. And I did put a lot of the questions in that you probably thought were boring or whatever to the proposed JDA for Excel to answer to, because I was trying to condense a lot of the things that you guys were saying, as did Supervisor Counter and Chair Long. We do want to represent you well and have your voice being heard. There's just a process that's built that extracts the level of power, I guess, we have to make sure that the light switch goes on when it goes on in your house. So, I don't mean to give a long speech. I do want you to feel as though you're being heard, but you're not powerless. You can use your power here, but we're not the only voice in the room. We're not the only tool in the toolbox. You can go to your towns, you can go to your villages, and you personally will be able to, once it's filed, respond and give your testimony to the PSC. So I'm not saying, I don't want to give false hope. Jason gave a good example of a recent case. There's still time here that things could change. But for now, I'd like to see us move forward. This intervener proposal, as I understand it, does not include a blank check for hiring limitless outside resources to help fight the battle. We don't have those resources either, and to me it seems like the most reasonable approach is a both approach, and that is to approve this resolution as submitted, and then I'm just appealing to my other county board members to have a bit of an open mind and say, let's do both. Let's do the JDA and to pass this resolution that's before us.
Yeah, go ahead.
For those of you that don't know me, I just represent, I was on? Okay. I represent the ag for the county. And I've heard all of you, some good against, for, but I would like the county board to look at your vision and your mission and follow it, please. They've made enough reactions here with their voices that you should be able to look at what you're here to do. Don't give up. I know everybody says, oh, you can't do it. You can't do anything about it. They're going to do it. We're in America. Why can't we?
No pause, please.
Why can't we at least get our representatives to do their job? You were voted into your office by constituents of the county. Right there are your constituents. Represent them, please. I have been town chairman for 34 years in Stanton. I haven't had anybody in opposition to me because I represent my constituents. I don't always go with my best thoughts. I'll go with the majority of the constituents. That's how you get voted in here. That's how you get voted out. And I don't want to stop here. We've got legislators in the state that are turning a blind eye to this because they don't want the dirt on their hands, because it doesn't look good against all their other little buddies. And how many of them are maybe taking some, I shouldn't say it, but a bribe in some way? It's politics. We all know what politics is. And it's not good for the county. It's not good for the local community. But follow your mission and your vision, please. That's all I ask.
Thank you.
Hey, please, no commentary, applause from the crowd when it's not public comment. Thank you. Thank you. Would anyone like to make a motion related to this resolution? Yeah, that's fine. You can ask a question.
So another one for attorney. So we had another attorney speak tonight, and one of the things I thought I understood her to say was the intervener role. There was a lot of statutory language that would hurt our ability in the intervener role to have much authority with the Public Service Commission, and that a resolution would maybe be a better venue. Like to, have you checked into, or did you kind of hear what I heard on this? And can you comment back or explain that a little more in detail?
Yes, I heard that comment from Attorney Kushever. Gwen and I have worked together. Yes. Oh, Munkitrick, Catherine Munkitrick, sorry. Her previous coworker. I got them confused. Sorry, Catherine. I did hear her say that. I have not researched that particular issue. I surely can do so. But I did write that down in my notes when she was speaking.
Can I just make a comment? I think that's not a correct statement of what
I we can't accept comments from the public right now. Thank you. But I don't seem to remember that being what was said by the attorney Munkitrick. I think, if I'm remembering correctly, Forrest did go the intervener route. So that's, I believe, what was being reflected in that public comment. And I'm seeing head nod, which is good enough for me. I think, and I've talked to people about the Town of Forest case before, and it's not that the PSC rejected the project; they just made it so difficult and expensive that it was no longer viable, right? Which, all the same to me, you know. But that was done via the intervener route. So would anyone? Go ahead, Supervisor Kennedy.
I just want to make sure whichever way we go, that legally we're making the right decision. I don't want to limit where if we make a decision one way, that it impacts us negatively towards something else. So as long as that's crystal clear, that if we do this, that it's not going to limit our abilities for a different venue or a different way to manage this. Because what we want is to make sure that we're protecting what our ability is to have the best impact.
And I guess I'll ask this question now, but this resolution is kind of getting us prepared for what that formal intervention would look like, right? It's saying when that happens, if this goes through and gets through the county board, we'll intervene fully. Now, what that scope looks like is still to be determined by the county board as a whole, even after this resolution is passed. And
Correct.
yeah,
This is just saying, yes, county board, you give corporation counsel the authority to intervene. The specifics of the intervention will be something that will be discussed further. That is something that is considered litigation that we can go into closed session for in the future. But we don't know, we're not to that point yet. But this just gives us the authority, if and when there is an application filed, you're giving the county the authority to intervene.
mm-hmm. And the county always has the ability to undo a resolution at any time.
Correct.
And that application sounds like, as long as Excel was telling the truth on this, was going to be filed towards the end of the year, not next week or even next month. I guess my one sentence left is, I think the most prudent thing right now is to keep this resolution going forward. And if we discover that is not the right path in between now and then, we can always yank it, rip it up, or even pull it back if that is not the most efficient way to object to the project or the most likely way to be successful.
Okay, I wasn't gonna upset that. I just wondered, Heather, is there any other way that you can think of that would be a better way for us to represent the people? In your conniving lawyer type mind, can you come up with anything?
I do not have any other ideas at this point. If I do, I will let the county board know.
Call me.
Point of clarity for the audience.
We can't accept.
Do you want us to know what you're actually talking about?
We
have item
please.
number 4, which is talking about solar ordinance.
What? Okay, we're talking about agenda item 7, which was moved to 3, which was brought up. Yeah.
I just wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So one of the voices that we have not seen here are the voices of the property owners that have been signing leases. Does going forward with this resolution in any way expose us to any risk with other residents of St. Croix County that might be interested in an agreement with Excel?
No, because our intervention will be St. Croix County, i.e. what the County Board of Supervisors is directing us to do. We don't speak for each individual citizen. They can speak for themselves. We're speaking collectively as the county board and what the county board wants us to intervene. So no, it won't negatively affect them. I mean, it could, but we don't speak for each individual citizen when we're speaking before the PSC. It will be what we believe that the project should be changed or whatever, the parameters are, which is why the renewable energy ordinance and the specifics in that may be helpful. It's not directive, but helpful.
So one of the reasons I ask is that some of those landowners are counting on this. And I think some of them have shared, I know Jason, I think you had a conversation with Brian where he reiterated, I don't want to put words in your mouth, that one of the property owners was saying, I'm looking forward to this because I can finally repair my equipment. He was looking for a stay. Does that sound similar?
Yeah, and I got another email today from another letter of support, but we haven't really held a public hearing, so I've been collecting those other feedbacks, and so there is definitely citizens on both sides.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Can we sue our own county?
Please, no more comments from the audience. Please don't, please stop if we keep getting comments from the audience members will be asked to leave. I don't want to do that, but it's like the fourth time I've said it, so please. Yeah, do we have a motion from the committee? Either way, anyway, more questions, more thoughts, more opinions, motions?
There are still so many outstanding questions. I'd like to see us table this till next month.
Is that a motion?
Yeah, I move to table it till next month.
Do we have a second? Seeing none, the motion will not be voted on. Do I have another motion? I'll make the motion. I can do that, right? I'm gonna make the motion to recommend passing this resolution to the full county board. And we will have time between now and the September meeting to see if there are any other or better options. And we can always pull it back, so that's my motion. Supervisor and someone with a second. Any discussion on that?
My only discussion is that I'm just appealing to my fellow county board members to have an open mind when it comes to what we can accomplish with the JDA. I will be voting for this resolution.
Okay. Any further comment? Go ahead, Supervisor.
Just one, I think we have to move quickly with this. And that's my reason for not wanting to table it for a month. I think we have to keep on top of this, or it's like everything else that we put off, and suddenly it's Christmas, and we haven't done anything.
Right.
So that's my reason for pushing it. That's my reason for seconding it.
Go ahead, Supervisor Connor.
I think I can, push to be in favor of this, but my biggest concern is that we legally look at this really seriously and take whatever help you can get, that if anybody has knowledge base or things that can help you through this, I want to make sure whatever decisions we're making here is going to end up being in our best interests, and that we don't do something that's going to come back and impact us in a negative way.
And I would add to that we should talk to Ms. McKintrick, who went through this already as an attorney role, or as an attorney for the town of Forest. Any other discussion? I think we can do a voice vote on this one. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? That carries unanimously. Thank you. We are going to take we'll call it a 10-minute break and be back at 7:28.
it on the agenda last month, and it is basically a tool that the county could use for the intervention process with the Public Service Commission. However, when we look at any renewable energy ordinance, any provision within the ordinance, the main purpose of it is to follow 660401 here in the purpose statement, and that is to oversee the permitting of a wind or solar energy system and preserve and protect public health and safety without significantly increasing the cost or decreasing the efficiency of a renewable energy system per Wisconsin Stat 60. So basically, those three things are the only provisions that we can have an ordinance provision related to. Health and safety, we can't increase the cost too much, we can't decrease the efficiency of the system, and in fact, if we do, we have to provide an alternate area or an alternative to it. So I'm not gonna go line by line through this, but a lot of the definitions or terms are straight from statute, that's where they came from. As we scroll down through, Supervisor Shirley at the last meeting had asked for a definition of a solar facility here. So that would be defined in this ordinance as an integrated installation designed for large-scale solar generation where all the land parcels comprising of the facility are physically adjacent and form an uninterrupted area. So that would be the concept that if the Excel project was all together, the 3,300 acres was connected, that would be interrupted or uninterrupted area and contiguous. Otherwise, I can go down through this. It's been a pretty long evening here though, but in the general provisions section, a lot of this is what we see in the current Excel Energy Joint Development Agreement. So there's text in here talking about emergency action plans, emergency training for our first responders, annual reports, and that includes maintenance reports, permitting and that for CUP through the county. It also talks about permitting for federal, state, and local municipalities as well. So that covers driveway permits, road use agreements, that kind of stuff. Erosion and soil control, easements and access for responders that need to be on the property. It also talks about trying to accommodate adjoining property owners within a half of a mile. It provides some provisions for warning signage and safety for the public around the facility, and that would be wind and solar. And it also has compliance areas and that to make sure that they're complying with their permit. And of course, last but not least, screening and landscaping and battery storage provisions. So those are just a short list of what is in the general provisions here. What these general provisions regulate, you'll see going through the ordinance, is we've got large wind renewable energy systems, we've got small wind systems, we also got noise provisions, shadow flicker, signal interference, stray voltage. Again, we're not dealing with a wind energy system with the XL project, but typically you address both of them in a renewable energy ordinance like this. And then the small energy system provisions, so that would be still very small wind towers, generally not what you would think of when you go out into the Dakotas. Those would be large wind projects. And then we've got our solar energy provisions here. You can see that we've even got a height of 15 feet proposed in here, which is what Excel had in the joint development agreement. Also, in this proposed draft, we've only got a 25-foot side yard setback proposed and 150 feet from a non-participating dwelling. So Excel is currently proposing 100 feet and 150 feet. So similar provision to what they've got.
Hey, Jason, can you roll back to that one a second? I have a question on 2212. The number 2, solar systems installed directly in the ground or on a pole can't exceed 15 feet in height. I think we need to change that, and here's why. One of the things that the county talked about when this is all, when our building is all done, is perhaps putting some solar on carports on the parking lot. And that probably will get higher than 15 feet.
Okay.
You know,
Yep.
because they're gonna be aimed at the south. So they're
Yep.
gonna be on this side, they might be only 14 feet, but that side, they're gonna be higher.
Yep. That is an arbitrary number. Underneath our general zoning ordinance, it is 35 feet tall. But I was just making the connection with the Excel project, but that would be something that you could change it. If you want, we can change it now.
I would say we should up that to
Okay.
10 feet, 25 feet.
25 feet, okay.
Jason, I'd say maybe even higher. It'd be interesting to see, we heard about this, what is it called, agrivoltaics? Is that what it was called? I've actually seen some of those solar farms where they, out in Utah, where they were having sheep grazing underneath the panels. I don't know how often cattle is being used too for you know, cattle grazing. It's just one of a number of things I think we need to spend more time with on this. From a broader context, and it's really more a question for Heather, I did reach out to try to find out, this is a brand-new ordinance for us as a county. It didn't exist before. And I want to make sure that we all have a good understanding of where this fits in the whole scheme of the energy regulatory environment. And I don't know, maybe Heather, you responded in an email to me relating to solar and wind energy systems, something about no political subdivision, which we would be a subdivision, right, of the state, and the state has allocated the PSCW as the authority, so that we can't place any restriction either directly or in effect on the installation or use of a solar system, so or wind energy system. So could you expand on that? And is this in conflict with that?
So that's why in the 22.01 purpose, the language from Wisconsin Statute 66.0401 is directly in that purpose statement. So you're correct, it does indicate that no political subdivision may place any restriction, either directly or in effect, on the installation or use of a solar energy system or wind energy system unless the restriction satisfies one of the following conditions. And those conditions are contained within the purpose. Serves to preserve or protect the public health or safety, does not significantly increase the cost of the system or significantly decrease its efficiency, and the third is allows for an alternate system of comparable cost and efficiency. And so that's why it's in the purpose statement, and so everything in this ordinance should fall into one of those categories. So any conditions we're putting on an energy system should meet one of those criteria.
And my follow-up is, because so often it's in the context of agriculture, do we have any of those constraints around agriculture?
What do you mean more about agriculture? So the county can't come out and say that no solar energy system shall be constructed in an area that is farmland preservation zoning. That would be an illegal provision. However, we could have a provision that alternative sites outside of farmland preservation should be considered for solar energy systems. But if we get an application in farmland preservation, we're not going to be able to legally defend that because it's not in regard to necessarily public health and safety.
And also because the statute in chapter 1 of the statute says, it's 1.12 paren 3b, that it's the goal of the state that to the extent that it is cost effective and technically feasible, all new installed capacity for electric generation in the state be based on renewable energy resources, including hydroelectric, wood, wind, solar, refuse, agriculture, and biomass energy sources. So that's in chapter 1 of the statute. So that's like the beginning where the goals of the state are put. And so that's why in the purpose section, it says you can only contradict that if it meets one of these three criteria.
Jason, could you go back to the provision, one contiguous place? Where was that? Was that K?
It's in the definition of solar facility.
One of the things I'd like to do is after this meeting, I'll follow up with you, Jason, and ask that you forward. I've got a couple of examples that were approved by the PSCW. None of them are contiguous. None. They don't, it's not like one big square. They're all different plots of lands that can be connected by wire, so.
And that, yeah, I mentioned the Vista Sands project before in Portage County, and that one was all broke apart. So there were several different, even chunks. They weren't linked at all.
The reason I bring that up is our framework of a power generating place is one, I don't know, multi-acre place. And this energy source is something else. So by saying it's one contiguous, it may box in future landowners that want to make an agreement. So.
To answer your question, Supervisor Rice, about where does this ordinance fit in this whole process, and that really this ordinance would be a tool that the county board and whoever's intervening on behalf of the county could look back and say, hey, we're looking at, emergency action plans, and we would require that of a facility 99 megawatts or less. So we'd like the PSC to apply that restriction on this project that's over 100 megawatts. However, that's why I've kind of been identifying some of the things that are in this ordinance are already addressed in the joint development agreement. And so I'm not trying to be pro JDA or pro this ordinance and that, but you can see that they're very similar in nature because it all goes back to that purpose statement that they're related to public health and safety.
So Jason, after kind of going through this, reading this thing for detail, but there was a few things that maybe that you can show me if they're put in there someplace else, but I couldn't find it. But under like in the area 22.02A, one of the things is like exemptions for it. So like if you had, you put in there for roof units, but a lot of people don't necessarily do roof units. So looking at an exemption for like a freestanding system, say under 30 kW with or without battery backups up to 50 kilowatt hours or something like that. And then, or also small turbines up to 50-foot reach. Is the other thing, are you identifying as far as a renewable energy source, people that even have a windmill that's supporting operating a pump? Is that considered a renewable energy? So, it's all in how you read it and what may be acceptable to that. So we want to make sure that we are dealing with that. And then just a couple more. One other thing that I didn't see in there was if we wanted to put any language in for that any systems that are installed would not interfere with publicly transmitted signals for radio, television, cellular, or satellite. Not being that that's all inclusive, but that you don't have any disturbance that would interfere on signal. And then also, the other thing I noticed again, which is always my favorite, is there was a bunch of places that you had acronyms that didn't have labels, and that's always been one of my things. At least one place, tell us what it means. Yeah. So just ensuring that the acronyms get covered, but that's what I had anyway.
If you're looking at renewable energy, Jason, would you include biodegradable or digesters and that type of thing also?
You could, and that, yeah, and that if the county wanted to, you could. They're not generally regulated underneath the same statutes though as wind and solar. So that's why it's not in this ordinance. But yes, you could. Mhm. The ordinance also has provisions for decommissioning. The large wind, it's got different setbacks for the size of the turbine. The small wind has smaller setbacks because they're small scale. So it's much smaller. Decommissioning talks about, how long after the facility is no longer operational do they have to decommission it, so we talk about a year here. We've also got provisions for extensions if they can't get it removed. So there's just a lot more text in here than what you would have if you didn't have an ordinance like this. The complaint process here is actually spelled out in statute. And administrative code, and so that's where it's pretty specific to what it says.
Jason, could you roll back once again to 2213? We talked about, so decommissioning, and one of the things is the price for decommissioning every 5 years, it has to be upgraded. I think that should be every 2 years.
Okay.
5 years, think of what building costs have happened in the last 5 years. I mean, it's tremendous. So I think that has to be shortened.
Which provision is that, Jerry?
It's in 2213.
Okay. 2 years.
Yeah, I think two. I think 5 is too long.
Okay.
And I like escrow funds instead of a promise, but the state doesn't like them.
Yeah.
It's under section G or letter G.
Yep.
County may not adjust the financial assurance under this paragraph more often than once in 5 years.
Period. Yep. 2. Okay. And that's pretty much it. It goes into the general provisions of the ordinance, the permit applications, that kind of stuff. So is there any other questions without going line by line or provision by provision? And if the committee or the county board did want to proceed with this ordinance, there would be another public hearing on it, and then it would take full board approval. One of the big things with this ordinance is it would apply countywide, so it is not limited to the general zoning districts and the towns opting into general zoning. This is a countywide policy, similar to like our land division ordinance. Just one thing that was pointed out to me tonight that I was reading and I couldn't believe it, but then when I read it, one of the things that I didn't understand until tonight was that when you have these solar or wind generation operations, that they can restrict the neighbors from if they wanted to put a tree plantation in and it would cast shadows over that they have to take them down. They have to take the trees down. They can't allow that, or they can't, if they have something that does wind drift, and they can physically say that this is a problem, and so those trees have to go. So they have control over their neighboring properties. It's at the time that the application is filed, so it's impermissible interference is what the statute actually calls it. So if you were against a solar facility next to you and you say, well, I'll fix them, I'm gonna plant a bunch of big trees and that would not be permitted, and that developer could go after the neighbor because it would be interfering with their array. However, if you've got a forest and that forest was there before they applied the application, they can't come in and make you cut down your forest.
Are you sure of that? Because it used to be that if the neighbor had a tree that was growing, of course, that you could actually take the tree down.
And it's time of application, so it's in here.
Changed. There was even one instance where a person had a large flag on a flagpole that kind of shuttered their neighbor's solar array, and that had to come down.
Can you go back to the setbacks? I mean, set, you know
For
the
the solar system,
Do the.
Right here?
See if you can answer, well, yeah.
what's that? Okay. So yeah, so here's the setbacks, you know, and these are arbitrary numbers. They can be set by the committee and county board. So we had 15 feet in height. We were talking at least 25 feet there. And then we've only got 25 feet for a side lot line setback. Right now, chapter 15 only requires a 5-foot setback. So this would be more restrictive than our general zoning ordinance. If you're gonna start controlling the neighbor's property, you may wanna make that side yard setback even a little bit further so that it doesn't cast a shadow out over somebody's solar field. Okay. Should we, like, at least 100 or?
it's 150
Yeah, it's 150 in there. That, I mean, that doesn't seem unreasonable if you're restricting your neighbor's property. So, well, so I'm sorry in that, but it's highlighting everything. But number 1 and number 2 here is the provisions in regards to impermissible interference. And again, that's coming right out of the statutes. But it talks about a permit holder may seek an injunction to require the trimming of any vegetation which creates or would create impermissible interference as defined. So.
Is that only at the time of application, or is that any time? See, that's, I think, where I was talking about.
So, yeah, any person who uses a property which he or she owns or permits another person to use the property in a way which creates an impermissible interference under a permit which has been granted or which is the subject of an application shall be liable to the permit holder or applicant for damages. So in other words, it's either they've got a permit approved or they're in the application process, then the impermissible interference comes in. It's not for that, you know, I've got an existing woods or tree in my yard that's shading your panel now that you just put in. So it's very similar to our other zoning stuff like that. Zoning is not a retroactive thing, it's a preactive in that, so you gotta do it from the start.
So then the adjoining landowner would have to get a special use permit to plant a tree?
That's one of the issues, you know, and
Yeah.
that is, you know, I mean, yes, and that essentially the adjoining property owner, if you're adjoining a solar facility, you would want to be concerned that you're not planting trees and that would be interfering with that solar array. Because yes, they could come in, file an injunction and have you trim those trees or remove them.
I mean, that's the way it is now, even without the ordinance though, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, okay. Then this isn't adding an additional restriction to neighbors, it's.
Yep, correct.
Just, yeah.
Make sure that we're trying to protect the neighbor.
Right, mm-hmm.
But one way to protect that would be to increase the setback from the solar array to the property line.
Anyone have a disagreement with 100 feet?
150.
150? Even with roof mounted systems?
Roof mounted wouldn't apply to roof mounted.
I would say unless, I would say something like that's the setback unless it's on a previously built structure or something like that.
So underneath our authority, though, we exempt out any roof-mounted structures.
Oh, that's
So,
true. Never mind.
Yep.
Yeah, what I was saying is the shadowing of a tree applies to roof-mounted systems.
Correct.
Mm.
Yep. So you'd like to go 150-foot setback? Okay.
I just want to make a suggestion to the committee. I think we do need to take our time and make sure we understand what this means. We've been dealing with a lot of things. Last year, we spent a lot of time have, what did we call those, work meetings where we kind of
Work
would grind
sessions.
through?
Sessions, yeah.
Work sessions where, yeah, they're not fun, but these are the kind of, unfortunately, you guys are getting to witness the sausage getting made, where we talk back and forth and say, when we say this, do we mean that? Have we thought about this? And then we go back to the prior one and make sure it's all coherent. I want to suggest that we take that approach. It's almost 8 o'clock at night, and
Yeah, we can
I
do
tend
that.
to not make great decisions.
We can do
late.
that, yeah.
Does that sound good, Sean?
Yeah,
All
we
right.
can do that, yep. We're okay with, I guess, setting this aside for now and scheduling a work session and doing it that way?
Okay.
Yeah. We can move on from agenda item 4 for tonight. We'll go to 5, discussion on the Chapter 11 amendment. This is a lot smaller, a lot less smaller scope. It's like 2 edits at most.
Okay, so staff did catch one change that we'd like to make since we had this on the last agenda. And that was strictly to amend the permit duration, and that from 1 year to 2 years. And so that's the only change here. The reason for that is because then it would be consistent with our land use permits. So if we were permitting a building or a manure pit, animal storage system, this would align with that. So 2 years is a staff recommended change.
Real quick, any opposition to that from the committee? Maintaining the standards we have for other projects? Yeah, I'm good with that too.
Okay, and then number 12 is what we've talked about at several meetings now, and I'm just gonna read the whole thing, and that the owner operator shall demonstrate that they have obtained enough acreage to apply their waste and still be in compliance with their NMP by submitting manure or byproduct land application agreements signed by the landowners identifying all fields and application years in the NMP. A summary table of all landowners with signed land or signed agreements and associated acres and contact information shall also be submitted. And so at the last meeting, we had quite a bit of conversation about what does that signed landowner form look like? And so Tim Stieber and I worked on creating this consent form, and we tried to keep it really as simple as possible, but we also thought that the landowner might be concerned if it didn't have some information on it, like what am I signing, what am I approving? And so the landowner signature on this form conveys agreement to allow their St. Croix County property to be included as a land base in the above operations nutrient management plan. A landowner's signature also allows manure spreading in accordance with a current NMP, which considers crop nutrient requirements, soil, field type, and surface condition. So, and then that basically they would have a field ID, which they already have this in their NMP. They have the amount of acres in that field. For our staff, it's a lot easier to find a field if they have coordinates, and that's part of the NMP as well. The landowner signs and dates, and that would be in place, and that unless they pull out of this agreement, as it says up here with the consent. So we went into a little bit more detail about the NMP and the soil and the field slope, just so that the landowners knew what they were signing.
So Jason, just for clarity, this is not the form that's required, it's a suggested form that someone can use.
Yep,
unless they
to
have
address
something.
that ordinance provision about them signing, so, yep.
I think the ordinance said it requires contact information. There's not a spot for that on this example.
Oh, there we go, I'm sorry. So, summary table, contact information. So would you like to strike contact information? Or add it to the form? I think that was one of the,
Not the address, I don't think. No, I think phone number or email. Oh, just a box for one or the other, you don't need both.
And we should also have a place for a printed name in addition to the
No,
signed name.
You won't ever recognize it.
That you'll never recognize a signature, right? Although we do have the field number, which we could.
But the person who's signing there is representing themselves as the owner. The owner is on record.
Yep.
Right?
If you can read it, but that's the trick.
Yeah, but the owner's on record in a legible form, right? So if you're signing, you're claiming you're the owner of that property.
And they're given the grid.
Right.
Okay, so we'll add a phone number, email column. And are we okay with just having it being signed, or do you want to have it print too?
I say now's the time to make it simple. Print your name.
Okay.
Sign it. Any government form, print your name and sign it. You can't get by with just one.
Okay.
It might be
Birthday
to
of
the
your
point where you're
kids.
at like 4 people are filling out the information per sheet instead of 30, but that's okay.
Okay. Yep. All right, with those two changes, is chapter 11 for hearing?
Yeah, go ahead, Scott.
The only other thought is, part of why we're doing this is so that, you know, we're ensuring that the owner is recognizing that, this is being done to their property and that we have evidence of it. Do we want to concern with potential for a disclaimer of owner's potential liability for potential water contamination by over application or something that, so that they understand what the purpose that we're collecting the information is about?
Is that kind of part of the NMP submittal though?
Yeah, so I mean, the operation is tied to those requirements and that as part of their NMP. I would be a little bit more concerned about that if you had some kind of disclaimer like that, you know, I'm taking responsibility for any over application. A lot of people don't know what over application is. And then I think that the producers might have a legitimate concern about people not wanting to sign this. And so they might actually lose acres in their NMP.
Sure. And again, it all comes back to, you know, we're just trying to protect, and the owners have probably, they're gonna be in line for being sued if something happens negative, so.
Could be.
They understand.
Mr. Hesselink, do you have any thoughts on this, on what we're discussing, or? Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to know if you had any significant concerns or something that. All right. Yeah, go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the changes to Chapter 11, manure storage facility.
It's a discussion item, there won't be.
Yeah, it's a discussion item, so.
It'd be a request for a
I
future
mean,
agenda.
I think unless, I'm gonna put it this way, unless anyone's opposed, we can put this on the docket for a September, public hearing.
Public hearing?
Let's put it that way. Any opposition or reasons why you wouldn't want that to happen? All right, future agenda item number 1.
Okay. Yep.
Yes.
You're right. I mean, we need to do it, but you're so right. I'm gonna.
I can just give you a little bit of information on this. So,
No, not officially, we can't, but.
so I don't know how much you want to go into it. Julie actually reached out to Lynn Markham and that with the Center of Land Use and Education. And so this PowerPoint is a little bit dated. It was done back in 2020. I was gonna take and simplify it and remove. Okay.
Yeah, let's, I'm not even gonna ask for consideration from the other board members on this one. I'm just gonna do it. We're
Okay.
skipping agenda item 6.
Okay.
Yeah, and we'll be back in September. And, if you have an updated or simplified version that we can look at before the meeting.
I didn't know if you wanted it, that's where I was going, is I didn't know if you wanted it simplified, because there is a lot of good information in here about case law, and so I wanted to give Lynn and Becky Roberts the credit for it too, so it's pretty good. I was only gonna go through the first 33 slides, and I realized it's late, and that, but,
First 33,
anyway,
he said.
so I don't know, maybe this is enough, but there's not a lot of other content to go over, I guess, for
Sure.
that training.
How about just, just I think if you send this to us and then we can have any questions ready in October, let's do it that way.
Okay.
Yeah. Actually, it's in the agenda packet. Yeah, go ahead.
Couldn't we include this in our work session that we're probably gonna have?
Oh, yes, we could.
We could just work
That's-
that in.
That's a good idea. Yes, we can do that.
Mhm.
Yeah, we'll have to get back to you on that. I don't have time. I can't think about that right now. Yeah. Sometime in October. No, we're not waiting that long. It'll be sometime in September. But anyway, all right, agenda item number 7, we already did. So now we're back to the financial report.
That's what everyone's gonna do.
Where are the cheers and whoops?
I'm just sad half the crowd wasn't able to stick around for it. Register of Deeds. So what we look at here is really the registration deed fees. Where we are through July, 582. Last year we were at 589. So we're pretty much on target. We should hit right about where we were last year. That's a really good gauge too for development going on in the county. So that's why I take a look at that one each month. Recycling, lots of recycling events going on, hazardous waste. Parks, so we look at our parks revenues, gauge how things are going. So year-to-date this year, we're at 220. Last year, we're at 326. So that's a bit of a decrease. And there's actually a bit of a downward trend. You saw we went from 460 to 406. So we are seeing a decrease in the revenues generated in the parks.
Is a lot of that just due to like the sheer amount of rain we've been seeing?
No, so we actually got a new system, and so that number is not reflecting our credit card transactions fees for July. And so in the actual report, and that it only shows like $15,000 worth of income for July. Credit card sales in July were 89,471. And so that 90,000 is not reflected in that $220,000 number. So July was actually up 10 grand from the July of 2024. Up to the end of June, we were 14 grand behind year to year. And so, but with a positive increase in July, we're only about 4 grand down from 2024, same time of year revenues.
So the accounting needs to catch up there. 'Cause
Sure.
It's not being reflected yet. on
So
the
we're gonna have
financials.
insanely record high parks fees that'll show in like November for no reason.
At
As far
some
as like
point.
when the credit card slips go through.
They'll be put back to July.
Right,
It's just working everything out. Denise Kistner also retired out of our office here in July, and so we've been working on getting that position replaced.
Sure, okay.
That's the great thing about accounting. It's all fixable. Any way you like it, just tell me. Someone got the joke. Fairgrounds, UW Extension, we're down a few educators, so we'll save some money there this year. Resource Land and Water. I don't think I have anything else directly to point out, but if there are any questions on the financials, I'd be glad to answer them if something that you saw.
Any questions?
Those are the highlights though for you. All right.
Yeah, we should go through this line by line. No. No, seriously though, any questions from the committee? No? All right. Request for future agenda items. We already have, chapter 11. Yes.
Yeah, we need to have a discussion item regarding the property that the county owns near the village of North Hudson and the potential rezoning that's happening. Village of North Hudson may have a decision by then, but they're looking at rezoning a portion of it, which in at least my opinion, could reduce the property that we own, the county owns nearby to unusable.
Sure.
I don't know how to frame that.
I'm just gonna call it North Hudson rezoning discussion, or,
There you go.
yeah. Or something. I guess if I call it a discussion, we can't do anything, so we'll call it something else, but that kind of thing. Any other agenda items? We're gonna talk about the renewable energy ordinance, outside of this regularly scheduled meeting, in a work session. We are also going to go over some CUP training in that work session. that was a great idea, then we'll actually do it. Yeah, great idea. That was a good one. Uh-huh. So maybe, so we should get her in now.
Mr. Chair, we will have the Norris CUP follow-up from
Yep,
tonight.
that's true, yep. Mm-hmm.
And then we've got 1 rezoning and 3 Amish CUPs.
Okay.
And then we've also got an outdoor rec plan overview for the committee that we've been working on as far as staff. So it's just kind of like a first view.
Anything else that has not been mentioned that you'd like on the agenda? All right. Any announcements? Wow. All right. Day of the next meeting. I'll call it the day of the next committee meeting is September 18th, 2025. I will reach out to you guys about a work session date. We are adjourned.